Hello, 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 my friends, my brothers, my sisters, my fellow countrymen, my neighbors from across the sea, whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are. Welcome to yet another episode of Wick TV. Um, well, it's never a dull moment here in America. We've had a tragic, horrific event occur in Minnesota today, where an ICE agent shot a woman in the face as allegedly she was threatening him with a car, trying to run him over. Right, that's the story that the DHS and Trump are pushing. We've received video of this event. We'll be looking at the video of this event, and we'll be talking about it. We'll also be talking about a lot of the reactions to the event. Gang, it's highly likely that there's going to be more riots over this. I'm just telling you right now, I'm looking at the scene in Minnesota, and there's people everywhere burning American flags, doing all the chanting, protest stuff, right? It has potential to escalate. And yeah, we're going to talk about it. Deidre, nice to see you. Cameraman 502 says imperfect self-defense, manslaughter at worst. Well, we're going to talk about it. Right? Deidre says tragic. Yes, regardless of what you think, this is a tragic event. Concluding postscript says the American years of lead are heating up. Hopefully not. We'll see, though. We don't know. We don't know what the future will bring. But yeah, I decided I have a panel planned tonight for later. Or at least I was invited on a panel. Gibbs invited me on one of his panels, and he's been on a lot of mine, so I decided to go on his. And that's going to be at about an hour and a half. But I wanted to go live early to talk about the events of the day. So I guess the first thing let's start with Homeland Security. Let's see what they have to say about the event, and also what Donald Trump has to say about the event, and let's see what they are saying happened. And then once we do that, we will watch the event, we will see what happened, and then we'll compare notes, okay? After that, we will talk about the reaction of everyone else, and we'll get into that. Sound good, gang? I hope it does, because that's what we're doing. I mean, you don't have much of a choice. It's my show. I decide. Okay. Ocala says Heidi ho. Oren Gray says howdy. HT says bloody murder. DTK says they're calling her a domestic terrorist. They lie. Well, let's look. Let's see what they say. Here we go. This was posted hours ago. About 7 hours ago. Here, let me adjust it so you can be able to see these better. Great. Read along with me, gang. And this is from the official Homeland Security account, DHS.gov. Today, ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them. An act of domestic terrorism. An ICE officer, fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. The ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. This is the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement, who are facing 13,000% increase, 1,300% increase in assaults against them, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation, and we will give the public more information as it soon becomes available. So that is their telling of the events. Okay, so keep that in mind. Woman, or a person, a domestic terrorist, tried to kill an officer And the officers, one of the officers shot at her to save his life and save the life of his fellow people and the public. And also, they are making full recoveries from all their injuries, apparently. That's the claim, as we just read. Okay. Let's see what Donald Trump has to say on it. Donald Trump from True Social says, I've just viewed the clip of the event, which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They're just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate. And that's from the President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. So that's his telling. So remember, in both of these tellings, the perpetrator, right, this domestic terrorist, as one calls him, and a professional agitator, as the other, as Trump calls her, who was willfully, violently, and viciously trying to kill the ICE agent, okay, to run them over. And this was self-defense. So let's look, if we may, if we can, at the actual event, because there's a lot of angles, a lot of video. This was something that a lot of people see and can look at. And let's just watch this portion right here. Let me get it up on the full screen. Here, let me make sure you guys can see a good full angle here, hopefully. If I need to adjust it, let me know, but I think this will be good. Got the volume. You guys ready? Let's look. Let's take a look. Boom!
Oh my fucking god!
And she's dead, gang.
What the
That's
fuck?
it. That's all she wrote.
You just fucking...
Graphic image. Luckily, you can't see much, but it's important to kind of look and see what happened here. So, let's go over it again, just to make sure. This is her in the middle of the street. She is in the middle of the street. She does tell them to go around. Okay, so she's telling them to go around her. That does contradict with the official statement where they say that she was blocking them, but she was in the middle of the street. Maybe they didn't hear. Fair enough, right? So they get out of the car and they approach her. They try to open the doors to get her out of the car. She's backing up here.
No!
Okay, you can see 3 officers. There's one in the front here. There's one here, and there's one kind of behind. Okay.
No!
She begins going forward. He pulls his gun.
Oh, shit!
He shoots here. You can see the tires. She's obviously turning, right, to try to get back on the street and things like that. The claim, again, as we read earlier, was that she was trying to run him over. Dear viewers, do you think that she was trying to run him over? Does that look like, and we can watch it again, right? Does that look like it to you? Let's watch it again.
No! No! Shame! Shame!
What do you think? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Like, here's my thoughts initially. So there's a few questions here at play. The first question for me, at least in my mind, is, was the event portrayed accurately by the government? Okay, that's question number one. It's maybe not the most important question, but it's where I start. Okay, did what we just read from President Trump, as well as from Homeland Security, did their description of events accurately map out onto the events in question? I think the answer to that question is clearly no. Clearly no. Again, we can go back to read the Homeland Security. Again, remember, one of the violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them. An act of domestic terrorism. That's how this is being portrayed. Okay, just making this clear. Obviously, she wasn't trying to kill him. Not from that angle, not from that video. It's clear that she's turning. It's clear that she's trying to avoid him. It is clear that he did get hit. He was clipped. Okay? And there's more questions at play, as in, did he know she was turning? Right? But that's not the question we're answering right now. Okay? The question we're answering right now is the government portraying this event accurately? And I could tell you, at least in the case of Donald Trump, the President of the United States, in the case of Homeland Security, they are not portraying this event accurately. They're lying about it, in other words. Right? They're making it seem far worse than it was. Okay, so that's the first question. That's my thoughts. Does anyone disagree with that? That's where I'm starting. Does anyone disagree with my portrayal of what is going on here? Now, all the questions is like, she should have complied. Sure, yes, that's true. I agree. But that's not the question we're asking first. At least not first. The first question we're asking is, have government officials accurately presented this event? And I think the answer is no. I think that she wasn't trying to kill him, obviously, right? She backed up to get more room. She turned her tires to get out of the way. He got clipped anyway. That's a point in the favor of, like, did he fear for his life? But again, we're going to deal with that in a second, right? I want to establish first that the government's lying about this. And I think that matters. Whether he was justified to shoot it or not, the government is lying about this and what happened. And I like, why does that matter? Is that what you guys are asking? Like, why does it matter if the government is being honest? Well, for a few reasons. I think it's important that the government accurately presents events. I think that is in the public interest for us to be able to trust our government. And when the government lies, it erodes trust in our government. And I would rather that not happen. So that would be why. Okay. Second question we have to ask. Okay. The second question we have to ask is, was this shooting justified? So let's go back to it. Let's look. Let's watch it one more time. And keep that in mind. What justifies a shooting? Okay? So in my opinion, and I think the legal opinion, which is what matters here, to be clear, if the officer is in fear of his life, okay, if there is a reasonable fear that he's going to get killed or hurt, then he can respond with force. So we have the hindsight of being able to look at these videos over and over again, to analyze the scene, to go over these things, but I ask you, dear viewers, to put yourself in the officer's shoes, right? Noting that you cannot see everything that we see, noting that you only have so much time to react, and then ask yourself, is this legal? A legal shooting. Now, keep in mind, you can think it's legal, but still bad. Lawful, but awful. Okay? You can think that the shooting was probably a lawful shooting, but it was awful to do and should not have been done. These are things that you can think, right? But let's watch the video again. Let's check. Let's see. Did this officer have a reasonable fear for his life? And we'll go over it again. Let's look. Okay. And here they are. They're going around. They're surrounding your vehicle.
No!
This is the guy, by the way, the guy in the back. Let me back it up a little bit. See this guy in front here? You guys seeing it? This is the guy. If you are in this guy's shoes, if you're this guy, do you have a fear for your life in the following situation? SUV in the middle of the road, parked horizontal or whatever. You are trying to apprehend this lady, right? Regardless of whether that's a valid apprehension or not. Again, we're focusing on one question at a time, right? If you're this guy, do you fear for your life in this situation? Okay, let's watch.
No! No!
Coming. He pulled out her gun. Okay.
No!
He pulls it out right here. She's coming forward. The wheel's straightish at this point.
Oh, shit!
The wheels turns. And to be clear, he can probably see in the car, and he can probably see her turning the wheel. Probably. We don't know for sure. We don't have the angle, right? We don't know if there was a glare. I don't know, at least. I can't tell. But yeah, the car is going forward, and he shoots her 3 times. One initially goes into the windshield, okay? And the other 2 were from the driver's side, okay? So she's already passed. I think, for me, it is reasonable, perhaps, right? I could buy the argument that in the first shot, okay, yeah, I can see maybe an argument that he was scared. He had fear for his life. There was a car coming at him, and he pulled out his gun and he shot her, right? But I don't understand how he feared for his life when she was past him and he shot her through the windows, or shot at her through the windows, like the driver's side window. I don't get that part. What do you think, gang? Input output says he could easily move away. Fair. Theros, is that how you say your name? Theros X says the agent never seemed to be in danger. They'll need to make the case that she was a danger to the others unless eliminated. Does Wick read both Twitch and YouTube comments? Oh, not all of them, obviously. But some. Where is Dev? I don't know. If Dev wants to talk to me, he can, right? I don't know where Dev is. Have you checked to see where Dev is today, gang? I fucking don't know. Does Wick read? Good question. I don't know. Therosex, thank you. So yeah, I think that it's evidence, at least, that he might have feared for his life in that first shot. Okay. Okay. The question becomes, should he have been in front of the vehicle? And that's another question. Maybe. I'm not sure. There is some evidence that the DHS is instructing people not to shoot at a moving vehicle and only to use force if there's an immediate risk. I'm sorry. Here, let's just read it. Let's read what I saw. So, again, according to this person, ICE officers are trained to never approach a vehicle from the front and instead to approach in a tactical L 90-degree angle to prevent injury or crossfire, a senior Department of Homeland Security official told NBC News. Officers are also instructed not to shoot at a moving vehicle and only to use force if there is an immediate risk of serious injury or death, the official said. ICE officers are also instructed that firing at a vehicle will not make it stop moving in the direction of the officer. So again, this is according to NBC News, or according to the source from NBC News, the policy that they are not supposed to approach the vehicle from the front. Now, to be clear though, and there's more. Let me get it for you. Hold on. There's clear though that there are. He wasn't like directly in front. He shot like from kind of like the kitty corner side. I'm trying to find the. Give me a second, gang. I'm trying to find the image I had. You know, you'd think I'd be more prepared for these things, right? But there's an image actually of the windshield. Here's another angle, and I think it's worth watching this other angle. So let's watch this other angle real quick. I gotta adjust it again. Ugh. Okay, yeah. Okay, so here's the car. It's right there. I don't know if you can see it, right? It's the officer right there. And this is the officer. So it clearly clips him. Okay? I think there's clear clip contact. Do you see what I'm talking about here? But also he wasn't like directly in front. At least not from this angle. And I was looking for there's an image of the windshield and it shot like from the side, right? I'm trying to find that for you guys. But here's the video from the angle. And obviously car goes, plows into there because she's dead. Does that angle change anyone's mind? I'm curious. Does that angle change anyone's mind? Cameraman 502 for $5 says, I don't think you can separate out each round individually since they are so close. I can question if the fear is reasonable and most manslaughter. Fair enough. Yeah, it looks like he gets clipped, right? But to be clear, right? I've been hit by a car on accident going around that speed. I wasn't in fear for my life. Okay. They were going from a parked position. They were accelerating. It clipped me. It was a mild inconvenience. That's happened to me, right? They did it on accident. It wasn't on purpose, right? But then again, it wasn't in a tense situation like that. That was just me fucking around in a parking lot, right, with a buddy. So I don't know. Read my other supers? Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry. I was watching the video when you guys sent it, so I couldn't see it. The pleb for $5 says, my life has been more in danger while taking a dump than that guy. He literally moves back in front of the car. $5 from Zephyr Hash to say the playbook is clear. Keep pressing the issue till eventually someone gets hurt and they can implement martial law. Well, like I said, there's There's reports of protests in Minnesota right now, and we're gonna see what Tim Walz and some other people are saying about it. In fact, while we are on the subject, let's look at the victim here. So first of all, this is the only reason I'm showing this, because they show who the victim is, right? It's Benny Johnson, the most retarded of takes. Says the Minneapolis ICE attacker has reportedly been identified as Renee Good. She, her pronouns in her bio. And just like that, it looks like we have another act of left-wing terrorism. And yeah, this is Renee Good. And she apparently has a 6-year-old son. She's 37 years old. She had a wife, I guess. And now she's dead, unfortunately. And this is tragic. The idea, though, that she was a terrorist, and again, this is echoed by the DHS, the Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, calling her a terrorist. The acts that we saw on video were not the acts of terrorism. She was trying to flee the scene. To be clear, and I want to be clear on this, gang, she was stupid. What she did was very stupid. You don't do that. You don't flee from officers like that. You just increase the risk of things going south, like 1,000%. That said, did she deserve to die for being stupid? Probably not. Okay. Probably not. But thank you for the $5, gang. I do appreciate it. Yeah, panic is a hell of a drug. And she is in a situation that was super tense. She shouldn't have been in that situation. It was crazy. Okay. Yeah, Ashley Babbitt. Look, Ashley Babbitt, if there's a justified shooting, Ashley Babbitt's it. She got tragedy that she died, but she fucked around, she found out kind of deal, right? Like, she was very stupid. And she shouldn't have been stupid. Okay? If that's a lesson I can drill into your little heads, ladies and gentlemen, is don't be stupid. Please. But regardless, let's see what the mayor of the city, Minneapolis, is saying. Okay, it's a short clip. Let's read what they say. Okay.
To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. Somebody is dead. That's on you. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be working towards justice as quickly as we possibly can right now. And justice is what we've all got to get. We're going to make sure that in this very difficult moment, we do not take the bait that these ICE agents are trying to create and that the federal government, to be clear, wants.
People are going to want to exercise their First Amendment rights, but please do so safely and lawfully to ensure that we do not have any further tragedy in this city or destruction.
We can show them the kind of courage, bravery, love, and compassion that makes Minneapolis. Let's unite around hope and love and peace and getting justice.
That's their official statement by the mayor. We also have a statement by Tim Walz. Let's see what he has to say.
To Minnesotans, I say this: I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this: please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's Mobile Response Team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Bob Jacobson of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety.
And that's his statement, gang. What do you think of these statements? Did they meet the moment? What are your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? What do you think? I think that the Tim Walz statement was pretty good. The mayor's statement was pretty good. They don't want rioting. They don't want people to go crazy. They want people to be orderly and expressing their First Amendment rights, and I think that's a good thing to say, right? What do we think about the comments from both the mayor and Tim Walz for the federal government to get out of Minnesota? What do we think? Zero Fox says, overly performative on both sides. Gen Z attorney. Are you responding to me, Gen Z attorney? What are your thoughts here, Gen Z? Gen Z, do you think, you're an attorney, do you think this was legal? Was the shooting legal, in your opinion? What do you think? Was ICE actions legal? Yeah, hop on for a minute. I'm curious. You're a lawyer. Just jump backstage. I'm really curious. Cause I'll be clear with you, gang. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the law by backwards and forwards. To me, the criteria seems to be, did the man fear for his life? And when he shot. And that's what I know. That's the only criteria I know. I don't know if there's any like loopholes or other criteria in the mix. So once Gen Z gets here, we'll talk to him. But yeah, gang, here's my take, such as it is. And I'm sure we'll get more information as it goes. But from watching the video, from seeing the statements from all involved, I don't know if this was a legal shooting. I can't tell you that. Whether he feared for his life or not, I don't know. I can see arguments for and against. I will say that there were other ways to go about this than shooting that lady. I don't think that any of these officers were ever an actual threat. Whether they felt they were a threat or not, there was never any threat. She wasn't trying to kill anyone, okay? And it's a tragedy that she died. And to call her a terrorist is crazy. That's insane. Whether or not the officer acted within the bounds of the law isn't the question to me. The question is, should she have been shot? And the answer to that, in my opinion, is no. But yeah, I think that's a fairly ice cold take, but who knows? Hello.
Greetings. Thank you for having me on.
I know it's a little like, we're just impromptuing it, right? But hey,
Yeah.
what's up?
No, it's all good. Yeah, I didn't even catch the story until really towards the end of the workday, and then I just checked Twitter, and it was like every post I saw was everyone on one side or the other. I was like, what did I miss today? But
yeah, everyone before you go, like, one of the things that bothers me about this is how sure and certain every single person is on their take here. Like, everyone is suddenly, this was 1,000% self-defense, case closed. No one needs to look into it further. or they were like, we need to hunt down this ICE agent and hang him from a tree before he murders other white women in the streets. And there's no real in between here. And it's just like, yo, we have very limited information. Yeah, the video looks real bad for ICE. But I don't know, like, it's not open and shut case in my opinion. But maybe you disagree, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying, yeah, I don't think it's open and shut either way. I think it does lean heavily towards being a justified shoot, because it does not come down to the intent of the victim. Because I actually agree. I think the intent of the victim was to flee, but the question is not whether or not she intended to flee. The question is whether the officer that was at least in her path, maybe not directly, but from where he was standing, he was in her path until she started turning. Whether or not that's close enough, or whether or not he has a reasonable fear that it is at least coming in his direction. And I'll say this: anyone who finds himself in a position to have to try and justify their point by doing the slow-mo frame-by-frame analysis, you're starting from a losing spot. I think, because these decisions are not made in slow-mo frame-by-frame time. This is these officers don't get to turn on their frame-by-frame reaction time before they make their decision. They've got a split second to make this decision, and being that close to it, I think is yeah, I think reasonable enough. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, right? Like, because
Yeah.
I obviously, like, I've been that close to a car and it started moving, and I've gotten hit before, moved out of the way, right? Like, that wasn't a life-threatening situation to me.
Let me.
My
I heard you
life
say
was not
that.
in danger during that.
I had a couple questions just about some of the facts there. Was it someone you knew that was driving?
Yeah, it was a buddy of mine. And
Okay,
we were in a
so I
parking
think
lot, and we were, I don't know, I was just messing around or something. This was years ago, right? And
yeah.
I remember being like on his bumper, basically, kind of hitting on his car, yelling at him and things like that. And he's yelling back, and he goes, and I'm like, oh, and it like moves me out of the way. Yeah, I wasn't injured, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So I think the key distinguisher there is that you knew who was driving, and you had familiar good relationship with them. You knew they were not going to be someone who's going to just try and gun it and run you over
well,
and hurt
yeah,
you.
sure. But even in this
Yeah.
situation, I wouldn't have pulled my gun out in this situation if I was a law enforcement officer, right?
Yeah, so and I can speak on that as well, because and that back angle is, I think, the most helpful for all of this. And the main thing I'm wondering, maybe you have more facts than I do, was she just sitting there like trying to block ICE from doing what they were doing, or why was she in the road like that?
Allegedly,
Okay.
but I don't know. Like, the allegation is that she was blocking ICE and getting in their way. But I don't know if that's true. I
Okay.
just don't.
Because that's a highly relevant fact, because that's going to establish whether or not ICE had grounds to even engage with her in the first place. Now, granted, it wasn't.
During the video, she does tell them to go around, right?
Okay, yeah.
So that tends to lead credence to the fact that, well, okay, she wanted them to go around, so she wasn't intentionally blocking. But I don't
Right,
know
right,
how. Yeah, I don't know how strong of evidence that is, or if there were other
right.
things she was doing before that we don't see in the video. I have no idea, right? So I can't speak to
Because
that.
another interesting fact is her wife was there at the scene, but she was not inside the car. So that I have questions about that. Like, okay, unless they're like at their house, and that would explain why maybe one was in the car, one wasn't. But why would they ever be in a position where one's in the car, one's not? So yeah, there's a
She was
lot of like
dropping her
lead
off,
up.
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, I don't know either. But either way,
Oh,
because she
my
was.
audience is asking you. My audience is asking you if you think that Ashley Babbitt was a justified shoot.
Honestly, I don't know that I could give a educated enough opinion on it, just because I don't know
Okay,
the
that's fair.
did they get that one on video? Do we have that on video?
Yes, but I don't have the video on me right now.
Right, right. Yeah, I'd have to watch the video just to be completely certain, because yeah, I haven't dove into the facts deep. As you can say, just from like, we have video of this one, but that doesn't change the fact that there are still several key facts being omitted. Um, Yeah. My understanding, though, if I had to go out on a limb, is that probably largely yes, as far as the situation at hand there.
Sure.
And actually, for similar reasons here, it's the unpredictability of a situation where even someone doing something that may not normally be perceived as a threat, now because of these circumstances, now does get interpreted to be a threat. But like I said, that's my out on a limb. I can't really stake out a strong position
That's
on
fair.
that. But yeah, for this one though, the really important analysis points that jumped out at me, because when I first watched it, my immediate takeaway was that it was a justified shoot, and but then I get the slow-mo videos, and now I'm getting the different angles, and I'm trying to take in all the facts here. But yeah, the really, like I said, the thing I need everyone to keep in mind is that the key threshold legal question here is whether or not the officer had a reasonable fear for of a threat of deadly force. And the case law is quite substantial as far as upholding that vehicles are in fact a form of deadly force, even at low speeds, which I was surprised to learn pulling up some of the case law. But yeah, even at low speeds, even in cases where the vehicle is technically angling away from the officer, just because the officer's in the vicinity. There's even a case where a guy was driving away from the officers and shooting him as he was passed free and clear. Qualified immunity was still upheld, because that's the other threshold legal question. If an officer has that um, reasonable fear of deadly force that authorizes him to respond in kind, then he has qualified immunity, which I'm sure a lot of you know about already. But basically, it gives officers this shield of protection to where they cannot be prosecuted. Anytime an officer is prosecuted for anything, the threshold question is the judge has to determine whether or not they have qualified immunity. Because if the judge upholds that they do, which that's the presumption is that all officers do, then prosecution dies, even if objectively it was an unreasonable situation, so long as there's subjective, or no, I'm sorry, it is objective belief. That it was.
Hold on, Liberal Clock, mute your stream. Mute your stream and or turn off push to talk. Hopefully he gets that done. But continue, please. Sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry. Gotcha.
Let Gen Z finish his thought.
Oh,
please. Yeah.
that was it. Yeah, just that it's the qualified immunity question. That the key question once again is not the intent of the
All right, go on. Z.
Yeah, because I agree. I think she was cutting her wheel in a way that her intent was to flee. But that's not the threshold question here. The threshold question is the officer's whether or not he had a reasonable fear that authorized him to respond in kind.
What do you think? Liberal Cluck was yelling at me in chat saying you're wrong, and you want to come out and prove you wrong. So Liberal Cluck.
Yes. All right, so I think you're missing a key part of this, and that is the officer's training. I was trained as a corrections officer in the DOC. Now, this is Virginia DOC, so maybe Minnesota is different. But it was my understanding that if my actions led to the harm of somebody else, and I was going off from training, I was doing something that I was trained not to do, then I am still responsible for that actions. But if I'm within training, if my actions lead to the harm of somebody else, but I'm doing what I was trained to do, then I am covered. I would assume it's similar with police actions such as this.
Well, to be clear, this is ICE. This isn't police.
Right.
Well, yes, ICE. Law enforcement actions. Most law enforcement actions such as
do ICE have qualified immunity?
Yes, but it's a little bit more complicated than the standard, because now you're getting into a state could try to prosecute a federal officer, which there is precedent for that being attempted, but then the officer can get a habeas corpus petition to basically have the Fed step in. Because at the end of the day, the federal law reigns supreme. It's the supremacy clause of the Constitution. So that's ultimately what's going to win out. So if there is a dispute, the federal law would win out there. But certainly there is some precedent that allows for it, but it is limited in scope.
Okay, go ahead, Liberal, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, the officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck, if he was actually trained to do that, he probably would have been immune from that case, because he was within training. And then the state would be responsible for the murder. They can get civil penalties and be forced to change their policies. That is my understanding on how this works. So if he was trained not to stand in front of the car, and he was standing in front of the car, and that led him to being in danger to a point where he felt the need to use violent force, he is still responsible. And I think that is like a gross negligence standard. that keeps them responsible.
So that's a way to go after police departments for sure. If they're training stuff in a bad way, that does lead to situations like this. But for what it sounds like here, and Wick, I saw you bring up the Homeland Security. What was that? Someone like an official in DHS that
It's
said
the
what the training
official
was?
Twitter of the like I got it's got a let's make sure. Yeah, it's got a gray check mark, which means it is the
Okay.
official account. So
Yeah. So that can certainly factor into the qualified immunity analysis on whether or not actions were reasonable, but that doesn't serve as a definitive ruling one way or another because the thing you bring up the George Floyd example, from my recollection, the defense presented images from the Minneapolis Police Training Manual that shows the exact type of restraint that was used on George Floyd. That was part of their training, and but that didn't matter at all. That he still lost his qualified immunity and gets convicted. So
so I
it's
guess
not
my question actually for both of you is there's two. One, do we think that this actually goes to trial? Does this get charged and does it go to trial? Why or why not?
No, I feel like I can pretty definitively say it won't because what I was saying earlier about it'd be the state. Well, first, the feds are not going to try this case because it's the Trump and the Republican controlled attorney general, so they're and U.S. Attorney's office. So their feds aren't going to prosecute it. The state may try to prosecute it. That's what Tim Walz sounded like he was wanting to do. But
Yeah,
then
the
it gets to
mayor and
that
Tim Walz
question.
say they want to. At least that's the impression I got from their statements
Right.
anyway.
But then it becomes this conflict between state and federal reign supremacy clause. They can still try. They can take the charges out. They can try and go arrest him. But then at the very worst, even if they do arrest him and put him into custody, then the DOJ would file for a writ of habeas corpus within the federal court system, which would then get him transferred from state to federal. Basically, be a forced removal from state to federal, and then from there, basically the feds get to take over. So I feel like I can pretty strongly say that
Okay.
no, I don't believe this will make it that far.
So to answer that question directly, if what I have no reason to believe Gen Z attorney is wrong about the like supremacy. If it does, if that's true, then it probably won't go to trial because Trump's administration is corrupt as fuck. But I got a question for Gen Z on that. If there's a statute of limitations on murder, if that's like 5, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, could they wait the
Is there a
administration out?
statute? I don't think there's a statute of limitations on murder.
No, there's not. But that's the thing about murder. So certainly, well, federal. Okay, once again, this is split between state and fed. So yeah, federal, there's no statute of limitations. I'll look it up, see what Minnesota's is. My guess is it probably is not.
While you're doing that, I just want to say real quick, I looked it up on AI, and I believe I remember this during a hearing. They do not train their police departments to kneel directly on subject's neck.
Well,
And when I was,
I don't. Hold, just to cut this off. I don't care about the George Floyd stuff because we're not arguing about that right now.
I know, but it's important for this case because his argument was that George Floyd lost qualified immunity despite his training, and my whole argument is that he doesn't have qualified immunity because his training told him to do things that he failed to do. Well, to not do things that he ended up doing. So like that point is important for my argument.
I can send you a picture. It was filed. It was an exhibit in the case that shows a picture of
Yeah, we
restraining
could do
someone
that
else.
later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just you brought up the point that it is an important point. So just yeah, I'll TM that to you actually. But
Well, I guess the pertinent question is did anything that happened here violate the ICE's training? It's an open question. I don't know. I just don't know, and I can't really
yeah,
answer
and so then what I would wonder as well with that, because if the ICE training is that you do not position yourself in front of a car, I don't know if we can say that's what this officer was doing here because you can't really tell from the behind angle. I guess maybe the angle from far away would show it, but it wasn't like he was posted up in front of the car saying you can't leave because you're going to drive over me. It seemed like he was walking across the front to get around to the side of it, and that's when she gunned it. Which I want to say that as well. I saw people saying on X that like it seemed like first she backed up to try and get away, and then she slowly turned the wheel and drove away. It's like no, she clearly accelerated away. I think just as a baseline
She
factual
did back
matter.
up, though.
What?
She did back up.
Yeah, she did back up, and then when she had no more room to back up, then she threw it in drive and gunned it. So, I mean, do you disagree with my assessment that she absolutely did? It wasn't just that she rolled forward; she accelerated forward.
Yeah, she accelerated forward. I disagree with your. Now, I'd have to look at the video again because I've never heard anyone say that he's like meandering his way across
Look at the video
the
again.
hood.
We can look at the video.
Well, I want to
Hold
look
on.
at the slow motion version,
Hold
which
on.
I know that
we
he
don't
said.
need the slow motion version. Hold on. Give me a second. There's a button I'm looking for right now. Okay, I found the button. We can all look at it together, okay? We can look at it. We can see. We don't need to debate. You stop. Stop. Nothing's happening yet. They're getting up. They're going up to him. They're approaching the vehicle.
So I'll say that they're approaching. They're saying get out of the car. So that's just so they've given her
Well,
an order.
he's saying give the fuck out the car. But I don't think that's
is
important
still-
legally, but like.
It is as far as if they're giving her a lawful order. If she's interfering, because it's a step-by-step analysis. First step, if she is interfering and impeding with a legitimate law enforcement operation, which they believe she is here, then they are entitled to approach her and confront her. That gives them reasonable suspicion on that front. Then from there, if they believe that there is any sort of safety threat, okay, now you've got Pennsylvania versus Mims. Supreme Court case authorizes you to remove somebody from the car.
No. The lawful order is important. I agree with you on there, but the him saying "fuck" part probably isn't important legally.
Yeah,
but I think that it could paint
Stop.
the picture.
Verbal clock. No one cares if they said fuck. No one cares. Okay.
Right. So right.
Let's keep
yeah,
going.
we keep watching.
Let's
yeah.
keep going, okay? So she's got the brake lights on, or the reverse lights on.
Reverse
here.
lights, yeah.
She starts reversing. There she is, okay? Then reverse lights go off. You see the rock back on the vehicle. This is when he starts to pull his gun. Right, you see it right here. He's trying to pull his gun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit.
She is going forward. Pop, pop, pop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you
It did
think about
not look like he was
what do you think
walking
about
across.
What do you think about the two shots after she's kind of past him?
So it can still, yes, that can still fall within the same nucleus of facts in the sense that, yes, it's 3 total shots, but this reminds me of when Rittenhouse, that trial, and people were making a big deal that he fired 4 shots, including shots into his back. Like the DA literally said that in the opening statement that Kyle Rittenhouse shot the first guy in the back. And then it's like, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy. But then when you actually watch the video, it was 4 shots and they timed it. It was 0.75 seconds. And the 4th one only hit him in the back because he was falling down as he was hit with the 4th shot. So we got 3 shots here all in the span of a second, maybe less than a second.
About.
So, yeah. So
well, it's also going to depend on his training. Like, you were trained. I was trained when firing our guns. You're responsible for every bullet that leaves that gun. If a bullet hits the front windshield, signifies that he was in danger. But the bullet that hits the back windshield and the side windshield, he was clearly on the side of that car when he shot it. So it's possible, and I don't know how Minneapolis law works, but it's possible that they could look at those 3 shots separately.
Yeah, no, they certainly can, and that's what they did. Gosh, which case was it? Sonia Massey. They charged that officer with 3 counts of murder because he fired 3 shots when it was 1 victim, 1 lady who died. And so, yeah, certainly they can try and ascribe an intent to each individual bullet. But right, this counters what I said earlier that you've got. It's the same nucleus of operative fact, which is in 3 shots in under a second, and there is some precedent that can say just because someone is technically out of the line as far as hitting someone directly, if they're still in the same type of situation, they're still posing a threat, still posing a danger, then yeah, qualified immunity was actually upheld for an officer who did shoot a car that was driving away.
I think the legal question I think will be decided in the courts if it gets that far. I do think that the charges will be brought. What happens after that, we'll see. My concern about this is I do feel that, one, ICE was never in real danger, regardless of how they felt they were. They weren't in real danger there. Do you disagree?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say that definitively, though, because of course, we can look back with the hindsight being 2020.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
But
doing. That's what I'm doing.
yeah,
I'm saying, with the benefit of hindsight, if that man had not fired any shots, do you think any ICE agents would have been hurt?
with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight. Now that we know, like, we can watch it all, we can look at the situation, we can review the context, all these things. I understand that
Yeah.
this doesn't play into whether or not the legality of his shooting. I am simply speaking, and maybe I won't hide the ball here. My whole point is that the aggressiveness of ICE, how they are trained, the policies which they are looking to act upon, led to a situation where someone died that someone did not have to die. Now,
So
she's
I can see
also
why you would say
retarded,
that.
to be clear.
Yeah.
She also is retarded, and she shouldn't have fucked around like she did and started to speed off, but we can hold more than one opinion in our mind at the same time here and say that ICE
Yeah.
being overly aggressive also factored in to this tragedy.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna disagree with that. Yeah, they definitely came in hot, as far as like, yeah, get the fuck out of the car, like as the first command. Yeah, no, they completely came in hot. But I think the issue with that line of logic is that you could use that to call into question really any type of law enforcement function ever, so long as there is a case where, yeah, something goes wrong. And now, once again, when we're applying the benefit of hindsight, which is what we're doing right now, we can look back and say, "Oh, that was so horrible, and the only reason this ever happened was because that cop responded to that call or saw this person do this thing, and he got involved."
Well, it's the
And I just don't think
policy,
it's
right? It's, or not the policy. What's the word? The process that they go through, right? That obviously is something we should look at in events like these. Like, okay, if we have an event that leads to an outcome that was poor, we should look at the processes that were in place that the law enforcement agents followed to see if, okay, if we change these processes, could we do so in a way that would protect our agents while also minimizing loss of life to other people?
so. I
That's
guess my
fair.
question, um, yes and no. I think my main issue is when we break this down piece by piece, and also to just take the policy perspective of it. It's like, what is the desired change here? Is that ICE needs to be nicer when
Yeah,
they're interacting with people?
yeah. Regardless of whether this is legal, I don't think that guy should have pulled out his gun and pointed it at her vehicle.
So, but if I don't want to watch it again, but from what I recall, he pulls out his gun after she throws it in drive, or as she's throwing it in drive. She stopped backing up.
Reverse.
Oh, sorry, yeah. She stopped backing up and she switched it from reverse to drive. Basically, as she stopped backing up, like when she froze, that's when he put his hand on the gun. She started moving forward. That's when he pulled the gun out.
He pulled the gun out, and then
As she was
he's
driving
coming
forward, yeah.
and then she shoots, right? Or he shoots, and he keeps shooting at least 2 more times. I think that
Mhm.
if he hadn't had his gun out, he could have just stepped out of the way, and nothing would
So
have happened.
that's actually a factor too in some of the case law I was able to find about why vehicles are considered deadly weapons even at slower speeds, is that the risk of an officer attempting to evade the vehicle poses a risk for serious or substantial injury upon the officer just in the attempt to evade. So that also is a factor in the analysis that I think weighs towards the officer side of things.
But again, in no way, shape, or form of him is him stepping out of the way going to injure him. It doesn't, at least in this specific situation, right?
With the benefit of hindsight, I say yes, but in the situation itself, when you're talking about he was maybe
Sure. I've
5
already
feet.
ceded to you though that it's probably legal in the sense that he couldn't know, right? Because he didn't have
Right.
access to all the information that we do, right? But we have that information, we have that access. And I do want to show one more thing here. This is in the aftermath, and I'm wondering your thoughts on this, because I think this is maybe even more damning, I guess, but I guess I'll see you guys' opinion on it. It's a 30-second clip. Give me a second.
Can I go check a pulse?
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician.
I don't
Listen,
care.
we understand. We got EMS coming, and I get it. Just give us a second. We have medics on scene. We have our own medics.
Where are they? Where are they? How can I relax? You just killed my fucking neighbor. You caught butter in the fucking face. You killed my fucking neighbor. How do you show up to work every day? How the fuck do you do this every day? You're killing my neighbors. You're stealing my neighbors. What the fuck, man?
So, what's the justification for not letting a physician go over and help her?
So
I could probably answer that.
Well, let's.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, for example, I'm gonna give you an example real quick. If an inmate falls out at work, we're not allowed to let other inmates, no matter what their training is, to do anything to that person, because if they do it wrong, we become responsible. So this person can say, "I'm a physician, come help them." I can go help them. They don't know what that person's qualification actually is. So, and you don't want some random person going up to them and trying to administer first aid that they don't know what they're doing. Now, what I will say is that we are all trained in first aid, and we are also all trained that we should be helping people in situations like that to the best of our ability. I'm not really sure why none of those officers were. I mean, of course, she was dead, so maybe that's why. But I don't think if nobody even checked for anything, then I'm not really sure why that wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, that largely covered what I was gonna say, is that it's kind of twofold. Where one, yes, you can never truly know what someone's qualifications are and whether or not they're trained to handle the matter. Two, if something goes wrong, then just imagine the flip side of you let this random bystander come in just because they said they were a doctor. And then three as well. You could also make the argument, if this is now going to be treated as a crime scene and this is something that needs to be investigated after the fact, then as far as preserving the crime scene, especially if they've got EMS on the way, because that is the standard protocol in that regard. Is yes, we call for EMS, they step it up. They said they had medics on the scene. Of course, the bystander response was, well, where are they? The video clip wasn't long enough, I think, to judge the veracity of that, if they have medics.
Yeah, like
there.
I said, it's just a clip. We don't know what happened before or after. Maybe they already checked vitals. Maybe they already did that, and maybe it was clear she was dead.
Or they needed to run to grab the med kit.
I don't know, but
that's true. We don't know if there were medics there, and if so, where they were in that.
But if there were,
30 seconds.
I would hope, and I hope we get more information, right? Because obviously there are a lot of cameras out at this, and we're going to see a lot of different angles, and we're going to get more clips, and we are going to get more videos. I almost guarantee you, simply because of how many people were around and how many people videotaped the thing. So I would, again, like to see whether or not how they handled it after they shot her. Did they at least try and attempt to get her any sort of medical help other than just, as it said in the clip, calling EMS, which is what they said they did? Because, I don't know, at least checking her pulse, at least attempting CPR if there was a pulse there. I don't know. We don't have enough information is the problem to make a real big issue with this. But it just, again, I feel this is all unnecessary. This did not need to end like this.
So I'm actually curious to get your thoughts, Wick, because me and our good friend of the show, Ryan Mullally. Now, granted, it's his idea, but I endorse it wholeheartedly.
Okay.
As a solution to the ICE raids, proposed a compromise that the ICE raids can stop if the sanctuary cities basically give up their quote-unquote sanctuary city status and actually cooperate with the feds instead of standing hostile in opposition, thus requiring the feds to go in unilaterally and do operations without any on-the-ground support. I think that type of compromise would allow, or would be a huge step in the right direction of not allowing these types of situations to happen. So I don't know what you think about that.
I'd have to think about it. I can't give you an answer right off the top of my head. I'd have to consider it. So I don't know.
That is
Sorry,
that is A-okay.
it's not a satisfying answer, I'm sure, but
No, I that's why I appreciate you though. That and the last thing about like, look, there's so much we don't know. It's hard to be definitive in a lot. But I think that, just as a broader media point, I think that's important for approaching situations like these, is having that level of, I guess, what's the word? Humility. Not jumping at everything immediately. Like, no, just wait for the process to
take a
play out.
beat.
It will play
Take a
out.
beat.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
will
Take a
say
beat.
again, I do have, and I think I'm justified in giving immense amounts of criticism to this administration for how they're framing this, though. Calling that lady a terrorist after what we just saw, there's no call for that. And again, it's very, very, very clear after reviewing the video as many times as I have that she was not intending to hurt that officer. Whether he knew that in the moment, different question, but I know it. I know it because I saw her take steps, which we've seen evidence of, to avoid hitting him. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's why, I agree. I largely agree with the point. I don't think she intended to hit the officer. I do think she was reckless and or negligent in her peeling away that fast with people literally grabbing onto her door handle and 3 to 5 feet in front of the car. But yeah, I agree. It was not intentionally trying to run anyone over.
$5.
Gen Z, what's your?
Just real
Oh,
quick,
go ahead.
$5 from Alice Ness to say, what obligation do the states have to comply with federal agents? Isn't that seizing states' rights?
Take it back to the supremacy clause. Well, just answer that real quick. Supremacy clause, U.S. Constitution, federal law reigns supreme over state law in the areas where the Constitution specifically enumerates where the feds have authority. Now, don't misconstrue me for taking this as the feds need to run everything, because of course I would never endorse that. But where the Constitution specifically enumerates where the feds have supreme authority, then yes, that does override state law. And when you have states that are trying to jam up the system and create opposition to that, I think that is the real basis for how we got into this situation in the first place.
Fair.
Immigration obviously would be, if not at the top of that, pretty close, probably top 10.
Gen Z, what you were saying about like, let's give it some time to breathe, I think that would be the absolute like ideal way of dealing with it from like the media narrative perspective. But the problem that we have on the left is that we literally have the president and head of DHS, like Wick was saying, lying and about this, and people like me and Wick have to be on, doing whatever we can to try and make sure the narrative is as straight as it possibly can be with the little bit of time that we've had to actually figure things out. Because if not, then the right's just going to take off with the narrative and people are going to believe a bunch of bullshit.
But I think
the narrative is at the very least directionally correct, is it not? She wasn't shot in a vehicle that wasn't moving. She wasn't shot in a parked vehicle.
She wasn't trying to hit him. She's not a terrorist, and the guy's life wasn't in danger.
No, that's incorrect.
You think that if he hadn't fired and shot her, that he would be dead right now or injured?
No, the question was whether injured, possibly.
You think
possibly dead, but like less
likely
likely
that he was dead or injured. You saw the video, right? You watched it?
I said injured. Yes.
Okay. I don't believe you. I don't believe that you honestly think that had
I think that if you're really close to the front of a vehicle that's moving,
I do not think that if he hadn't, you believe that if he hadn't shot her, okay, that he would be injured, right? I just don't. Now again, he didn't know in the moment. The officer may not have known in the moment what was going to happen, right? But we have different angles that he didn't have. We have different views that he didn't have. And we can all see that she was trying to flee, okay? There's no way he was going to get injured from what she was doing.
Trying to flee doesn't mean that he wouldn't have been injured. 2, doesn't mean that if he's right in front of the vehicle, then yeah, there's a possibility of him getting injured.
What did shooting her accomplish that just getting out of the way wouldn't have?
That's an excellent question that I'm not sure is totally relevant to the situation.
It is, because we're the question is, was it necessary for him to shoot her in order for him to
Okay,
stay
let me
safe?
apply that. If she was pointing a gun at him, and we said, well, looking in hindsight, you could have moved behind some wall that would have prevented you from getting shot, or
Well,
you could
here,
have shot
let
him.
me modify and
Would
make it
that
even better. If she was pointing a
okay?
gun that turns out was not loaded, we now know with hindsight. Oh wait, we know with hindsight there was no danger, there was no threat at all because the gun was not loaded. But once,
But like, dude, yeah, I got an answer to this, because this was the Destiny example. The DHS said that they trained their officers that shooting a gun at a vehicle that's coming towards you is not the ideal way of keeping yourself safe in these situations.
that's not the only consideration though. It's not just how do I personally self-preserve myself and my own safety. It's also how do I stop the threat from posing a further danger to those around me. So there is a secondary consideration you have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
$5.
If the
So now your
argument
claim is that
should
he
he
thought
be in
she was
front of
Hold on, just
that?
real quick. $5 for
Go ahead.
maliciousness. Are states' rights only waived according to the current regime of the sitting president? Marijuana is still federally illegal. Is the DAA raiding states? And before you answer that, keep in mind, I have a panel I got to get to in a few minutes. So you guys wrap it up, and I'm going to let you go to get ready for my panel, okay?
All I'll say, just since that's kind of in response to what I was saying earlier, I would just highly recommend you read the Constitution start to finish. Not a lot of people have done that. Not saying you've not done that, but I would recommend everyone read the Constitution start to finish. It will tell you exactly what the federal government exists to do, and everything that is not included in there. The 10th Amendment says that's left up to the states. So yeah, and read the Federalist Papers while you're at it. Those are pretty good too.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming in and giving your initial impressions. Go ahead, Ash, and go ahead, Liberal Cluck.
Yeah, so I think that if she is reversing, that does indicate that she has some kind of preference to not hit him. The fact that she then accelerates with an ICE agent in front of her, possibly very close to the front of her vehicle, it's still not exactly clear what the exact distance was, but there's a agent in front of her, and she does still accelerate. That shows that she has a preference to flee. She has a preference to not hit him, but the preference to flee is clearly ordered higher than her preference to not risk hitting the agent. And at that point, I think it's basically splitting hairs to say, well, she didn't intend to hit him. She was turning away. It's like, no, if her top priority was not hitting him, she would not have moved. If you're driving on an icy road, accelerating quickly, stepping on the gas, then there's some risk of hitting this person. I don't like that she got shot, even though I do prefer there to be more dead communists than not. I still, it's not something that to be happy about or celebrate, but I think that George Floyd is not the move here. So I wish you luck.
$10 from Tristan Thomas to say, it's okay to think something isn't relevant, but you should be confident in your stance to be able to answer the question and explain why it isn't relevant. And then $5 from Megalag to say, I'm going to wait for court because I legit don't think I can honestly make an informed opinion right now. Thank you for the money, gang. Okay, Liberal Cluck, final thoughts?
Okay, so one people are now going from she was intending to hit him. That was the initial narrative, and to even though she wasn't intending to hit him, he was still in danger. I'm glad that the right is coming to the side of truth, slowly but surely. And two, I think that the crux of the issue is going to be, how was that officer trained? And was he going against his training? I believe that being in front of the car in the first place was going against his training. I believe that he is not legally allowed to put himself in danger like that and then use deadly force to defend himself from danger like that.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. And I'll see you guys on the flip side, okay? On Monday, we're going to have an actual official panel on this. Lonerbox is going to be there. We're going to have Jeb Tan. We're going to have non-smokers. Should be fun. So tune in for that, gang. I'll see you guys later, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Wick. Yeah, and good luck on your Gibbs panel. Have some fun.
Thank you. Okay, gang. I want you guys to look at what's happening in Minneapolis right now. This is Minneapolis right now. Lots of people in the streets, gang. Lots of folks. I don't see any. What, is that a fire there? I can't tell if that's like a controlled thing. I have no idea. Or just lights or something. Yeah. Thousands are chanting "fuck ICE," calling for justice and accountability as protests continue to grow across the area while saying "fight back." Okay. The aerial video. Okay. At this moment, what we got? What do you think, gang? It's gonna be one of those situations. It's gonna be one of those situations, I think. It's gonna be one of those times where it's going to become very divided on what your politics are. Okay? If you support ICE or if you don't support ICE, you're going to have very different views on what just happened. I think that it is shameful and disgusting that the administration is lying about what happened here. And they are lying about what happened here. Whether or not the officer had legal justification to shoot is beside the point to me. I mean, obviously it is important, but I think that's more murky. That's harder for me to make a judgment call on. But what I can make a judgment call on, what is not murky to me, is that she in no way, at least from the evidence that we have, from the videos that we have seen, she in no way intended to kill or hurt those ICE officers and those ICE agents. If we get more video evidence comes out, maybe there's a clip of her saying, "I'm going to run you over," right? Fair enough. I'll change my stance. But from the evidence that we have, she was actively trying to avoid the ICE agents, okay? She was actively trying to avoid hitting them. And I don't think she should be dead right now. I think if the ICE agents weren't so trigger happy, that she wouldn't be dead right now. That's just truth, babe. That's just truth, okay? But what are you thinking? Okay, we got a Gibbs panel in like 10 minutes. Maybe I kicked the other guys out a little early, but I wanted to be. I can't imagine this not coming up in the Gibbs panel. It was supposed to be about are Democrats responsible for all the fraud? And we were going to debate that, but I can't imagine this not being something we talk about. I don't know. It's just something that's current news. It's happening as we speak. Refocus my camera. Is it blurry? Can you guys not see it? Hello? 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 Blizza says, you are all putting people in danger. What danger am I putting you in right now? Do you feel in danger because of my opinions right now? I'm out of focus. I don't know what to tell you. AKA Batozai says, Wick, will you change your mind if she comes out being proved to want to harm them? If it comes out that it's proved that she had intent to harm them, I will obviously change my mind. Yes. But the evidence we have right now of her, 1, telling them to go around, 2, reversing so that she gets more room to maneuver, and then turning her wheel, we can see in the tires that she does so, to avoid hitting them and to get out of, to flee. I think that it's pretty clear that she did not intend to hurt those officers. And that her intent was flee. That's what the evidence suggests to me. How am I cucking myself, Trib? What is going on? You guys just say things sometimes, I think. You guys just say things sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. Someone said the tires were squealing. I didn't hear that in the video. I don't know. Okay. Let's make sure I can get into the Gibbs panel. Hold on. Where is his server? I know it's somewhere. I got too many servers. Maybe I have to do a culling. $25 from Robert Paulson says, you are speaking the truth. I appreciate it. Oh, I appreciate you. Okay. Okay. So, in about 5 minutes, we'll switch to the Gibbs panel. But no one's there yet, so it'd be boring. Input output says Wick is being fair here. I try to be. Try to be fair. Do my best. We all have biases, if you will, but I try to be fair. I think you guys have to be like kidding me right now because my focus looks fine on my end. I'm looking at it on my OBS. My focus looks fine. Clean my lens. Is it dirty? Yeah, okay. You guys might just be mistaking my camera sucking for being out of focus. I don't have a very good webcam. You guys want to buy me a better webcam? Super chat me a lot, okay? I have low resolution. I always look like this. It's true. I always look like this. It's very true. Have you guys seen me in real life? Some of you have. Not many, but some. $5 from Frank to say she shouldn't be dead. She also made choices that led to this outcome. She should have gotten out of the car when she was told, more than once. Again, if several people had made different decisions, this wouldn't have happened, okay? But I do put onus on the agents of the state to not just go trigger happy. Again, is this a legally justified shooting? Perhaps. But I think I think he should lose sleep over this. I think he should, this is something he needs to repent for doing. He did something that was erroneous. He did not need to do it. It was unnecessary. Now, our legal system is in place that sometimes when we make mistakes, we don't always punish those mistakes with jail time or things like that because we have to allow for some reasonable degree of we can't have people triple, quadruple guessing themselves in these situations too much. But I think if this officer were going to go back and to watch what happened, I think he should feel like shit. Because none of that, no one needed to die today. No one needed to die today. The tires were... Well, you guys want to run the clip one more time? We'll run the clip one more time. Why not? Give me a second. Let me get it. I have too many tabs open. Too many tab open. We're running one more time just for you. Okay, let's look at it. Okay, here it is. What are we looking for? Tires spinning?
No! No! Shit!
I don't see them, they're obviously moving forward. But I don't see, spin out. And I don't hear tires. Do you guys hear it squeaking?
No!
I don't hear any tires squealing or squeaking or screeching or anything like that. We'll do it one more time.
No! No! Shame! Shame!
Yeah, I don't hear any screeches of tires. Sorry, gang. I don't hear it. Do you guys? And I didn't see it spin out either. $5. Thank you, Frank. Who was saying that it was, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go on the Gibbs panel. Give me a second. This might require us to go dark for a moment. So, one moment, please. Let me get the OBS up proper.
I've already started baiting.
Hey, you guys are live on my end, by the way.
Yeah, you're live here too. I'm sorry. What's up, Wick?
Right, not much. Give me a second. I'm trying to get my camera set up. One moment, please.
I mean, I can see you.
No, I mean for my peoples. Okay.
Someone in my chat goes, now that there's a lull, who else is headed to Minnesota to get some free electronics tonight?
Oh, damn.
Well,
we're about to pop off. Time to start looting.
Have you guys seen the footage of the
looting and
protests
scooting
and stuff? There's aerial footage. There's thousands of people in the street.
I've seen some of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what has occurred since I started streaming? I was talking about other shit, so I haven't seen any of that, but yeah.
All right, just checking chat. You guys can hear everybody. Somebody said they couldn't hear Scott earlier, but he was muted talking to his chat. So
a feature, not a bug. Okay.
Wick, I didn't realize you were having a panel on it today too.
Yeah, apparently. Well, it's not my panel. It's Gibbs.
No, I thought I was talking about what you were just on. I would have got my wiggles out today, so I don't have to hold this in my brain for 4 days.
That was just an impromptu thing. I was like, I want to talk about it, so I talked about it. No, I'm not.
Sweet.
Okay.
Well,
I'll see you Monday.
I'm not on the Gibbs panel. I was just crashing, but love you, Scott and Tyler and Grid. I haven't met you on a panel yet, I don't think, but love you too.
Really? Huh.
We might have been on one, but I've seen you in the Gibbs circles.
Okay.
You're good. You're good, peeps. Peace.
Bye-bye.
I mean, people say that, but I don't know.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
Mantis prays says to tell the unreasonable man to say, fuck you. So I'm passing that on from my chat.
Oh, he said fuck you to me?
Mantis prays said to say, tell him I said fuck you. So.
Oh, I misheard that.
Fair
I
enough.
thought he was asking for you to say it.
Mantis, yeah, I don't know who that is, but okay. All right. That's cool.
All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to go.
Oh, what happened? Where are we?
We moved you in.
1 second.
All that work you did on your camera, redo it.
I'll be right back. I'm going to.
You should be able to just
real quick.
It shouldn't. No, you shouldn't have to redo it. You should be able to like switch the scene.
Now I got to do this all over again.
Ah, the chingada, guys. We got to teach you how to use Streamlabs.
I got to teach you how to use Streamlabs so you'll quit using Discord.
Yeah, but I can do more stuff. Never mind. We're not gonna have this fight again.
Which
you don't want to lose this fight again. That's what.
Have you guys
thank you for the 5
memberships.
The 5 gifted memberships. I do appreciate that.
Potentially, I'm not going to rule it out.
I'm tired of your attitude. Listen, if I had strings,
I have an attitude.
My camera couldn't do this bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
I have just one attitude. I feel like I've got more than one attitude.
Probably.
Gibbs, how the hell you been, man? You've been you just haven't really been like
I've been busy.
Yeah, you've been busy, man. Something.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I haven't talked to anybody since I moved.
You've talked to me?
Well, chatted a little bit, but I haven't been on. This is my second live thing. I did something with Confluence earlier.
Everybody ready? We all ready though? I guess we're waiting on Fabian.
Yeah, he said he'd be right back.
All right, we're just waiting on Sociologic. He said he'd be late. That's
yeah.
So is it just me versus the world here? What's going on?
It looks like at the moment until Sociologic is in here, but I'll back you up until then.
I'll
play the lib.
Interest, right?
I'll be the
I
lib.
had plenty of bones to pick with Grid and was it Rob last time? So
Yeah, but you lost on those bones. You want to pick those bones again?
that was the chat we had prior. No, last time I held my own. Somali second generationers are the fastest growing in terms of IQ and earnings between the first generation counterparts of any immigrant group in the country.
All right. Let's kick this out. Well, give me a break. Guys, how y'all doing today? Hope y'all are doing well. We got one more coming. He's going to be a little late, but we're here to talk about should the Democrats be prosecuted or persecuted or whatever words you want to use for all the rampant fraud that's occurring all over the nation. Wick is waiting on his backup, so I might back him up a little bit more, be a little more lenient to him than y'all, since there's three of y'all, one of him. Let's start with Tyler here and give us a kickoff here.
Average debate enjoyer. I am back from like a 1 month hiatus. I have a cold right now. My Kuai background is so Kuai, and check me out on YouTube.
All right. Thank you so much, Fabian.
Yeah, I am Fabian Liberty. You can find me, just Google Fabian Liberty, I guess. You'll find me on YouTube and X. Do anarcho-capitalist content, libertarian objectivist content on my channel, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you to everybody that showed up on time. Ali, where are you at? So I appreciate you guys, and I'm excited for tonight. Should be fun.
Being fair to Ollie, it was work. He actually has a decent excuse. He's coming. All right, Grid, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Grid One Motorsports. I'm an unreasonable man. You can find me at an unreasonable man on YouTube mostly. I also have a new channel called Gun Prattle, where we talk about, shockingly, guns all the time, 24/7. And it's really cool. So you should check that out as well. That's on Kick, Rumble, YouTube, all of it. It's on all of them. And yeah, it's going to be a good debate tonight. I think it's going to be fun.
All right. So it's our token lefty for today. We got Wick here to defend his Dems against the rampant fraud. What do you thoughts?
I'm Wick. So, hi. You can find me at Wick TV on YouTube, Twitch, all that bullshit. Yeah. Are we doing opening statements, or what are we doing?
Yeah, we can go backwards for openings. Go ahead, give us the opening. Yeah,
give you my thoughts on the subject at hand. Should Democrats be prosecuted or persecuted for all fraud everywhere? Obviously not. I think that there is obviously fraud that has been done, and the perpetrators of that fraud should be held accountable. I think that the people who have been prosecuted and convicted for fraud, crypto fraud, and all these things should not be pardoned by the Trump administration. That should not have happened, but it did. I am not here to defend Somalian fraud. Obviously, if you can prove it and there's evidence and you bring it forth to a court, that's all well and good. Have at it. But what I am here is to caution against this kind of veiled innuendo that often happens in these things, where people put out a YouTube video like Nick Shirley did that has incorrect facts, and then this prompts a lot of people to make a lot of assumptions. Look, there very well may be fraud in some of these places, but that Nick Shirley video didn't prove that. Now, again, I'm all for opening up investigations if you have solid evidence, but this idea that Democrats are the party of fraud and they're doing all the fraud everywhere and that they're all looking the other way, I just don't think that the facts support that claim. That's my position. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Grid. Go ahead. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, just from my worldview, I think that it's obviously there's a due process. The due process needs to be followed. Ought we prosecute Democrats if they're responsible for this? Absolutely. Should they be held accountable? Absolutely. I guess the court of public opinion is not as relevant to me as maybe it is to some others. I just really don't care. I'm waiting to see if any charges, if charges will get filed and how far up the ladder they're going to go. We know that for this type of fraud to have occurred, it has to go pretty high. My concern is that the wagons are going to get circled, and Walls will never get prosecuted. If he had supposedly he's had a part in it. Anybody else that's had a part in it above just a base level of junior Democrat Party guy is never going to see the inside of a courtroom. I would have the same problem if it was a Republican or anybody really. But I think the Democrats have especially finessed this system out. And what I've seen, the facts that I've been presented thus far seem to point to industrial level fraud on the American taxpayer. And yeah, absolutely, somebody should pay for that with blood, sweat, and tears. So that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Fabian.
Yeah, so I have so much I want to say on this. Let me try and condense it. So first and foremost, we're here, to talk about the Somalian fraud because it's in the court of public opinion, as you said, right? Because this Nick Shirley video went viral. But this is, obviously it was, citizen journalism, doesn't have the same connections and the same, standards as does, major media publications, which have, have been for 20 years. We've been seeing how they put out nothing but garbage and misinformation and lies constantly, right? It's like, it's so funny when someone's like, well, the New York Times, it's like, oh, okay, so you read misinformation. Cool. We're talking about this because fraud is rampant throughout the entirety of the United States. And the welfare system in and of itself is designed for fraud. That is why it is made. It is not made to help poor people, right? And we know this. And I can prove this to you unequivocally, very simply. And the way I can prove this to you is that we spend $1.4 trillion in the last year on welfare systems as a whole. And there are 19.8 million American households that are defined as poverty or poor. If we were to take that money and redistribute it with no welfare systems, no daycare clinic gets this, NGO gets this to build housing, no TANF food stamps, landlords get kickbacks, all these other programs. We get rid of all these programs and we simply redistribute this money. Every single one of those 19.8 million poor families would get $70,000 a year in a check from the government. $70,000 a year. The money's not going to poor people. They are breadcrumbs of a system that is designed to buy votes, to enrich and to enrich the wealthy elite as they use programs and philanthropy and NGOs and their preferred vendors and bureaucracy to bleed the middle class out of existence. Welfare in and of itself, these Democrats, absolutely, of course they should go to jail, right? If what we're hearing from the congressional committee hearing today, where they were threatening people that were whistleblowers, where they were telling whistleblowers that they were going to lose their job, the claim, if those claims are true, that they were asking them in interviews when they attempted to whistleblow, well, I need to know where your kids go to school and I need to know where you drop them off and pick them up on the school bus if you want to be a whistleblower. Where we are having, all of these things shut down, where the DHS in Minnesota transferred from criminal proceedings and hearings and then changed the word fraud to overbilling to determine whether or not maybe they overbilled and we should get some of that money back instead of investigating fraud. This has been a rampant system. And the reason it's rampant and the reason we're talking about it isn't just Nick Shirley. It just, Minnesota is a special case because it's the Somalians. And because it's the Somalians, the average IQ of a Somalian is 70, right? 1 out of 6 Somalians has a functional IQ of someone with Down syndrome. They're over 87% of them are on some form of welfare. And it ties with the immigration issues that we are discussing, where people are talking about people from third world countries with horrific cultures like that in Somalia, where they're tribal and it isn't, and this isn't a black thing, right? Somalia, because of their tribal culture, obviously Africans tend to have a lower IQ than Europeans and Asians and Jews, etc. But it is specific to Somalia because their tribal culture has created inbreeding for over 200 years, and so they're the most ethnically and genetically homogenous country in the world, right? So there's a lot of inbreeding, and there's an incredibly low IQ, and they're really bad at the fraud, and it's because only 1 out of 40 of them has the intellect of an average American, right? The other 39 out of 40 are dumber than the average American. 1 out of 6 roughly are going to be equivalent to IQ as someone with Down syndrome, and the average person is going to be 2 standard deviations below the mean, which is highly predictive of criminal behavior, of an inability to be a functioning member of society. Obviously there will be breakaways. Obviously some people are going to be intelligent. Obviously some people are just going to have a good heart, and they're going to be hard workers despite the fact that they have a low IQ. But as a whole, as a community, they are deeply not incapable of being able to articulate their positions or engage in critical thinking. And that's why you see things like Leering Center, and that's why the fraud is so blatantly obvious and easy to discover, because they simply lack the intellect to be able to engage in fraud in a way that isn't obvious upon just an initial inspection. And so obviously there's fraud everywhere. Obviously the system is designed to enrich the wealthy elite, and there is fraud. Obviously the consequence of this is the destruction of the middle class. And I think welfare, this is a prime time to really showcase that what welfare really is. It is a eugenics program designed to decrease the fertility and birth rate of white middle class people in America, squeeze them out to where they can't afford homes, they can't afford businesses, they can't afford to compete with the wealthy elite, and to increase the breeding and the voting power and the political power of those at the very bottom of society, to create a 2-tiered system where the wealthy elite can engage in ruling over the rest of us. And it's not a feature, it's not a bug, it's a feature. And I hope people begin to realize this by seeing the absurdity and the deep levels of corruption in Minnesota fraud scandal that we have today.
I just want y'all to know, before we went live, I actually started a polling bet with a few people.
Was this like the director's extended cut version of an opening statement? What's going on?
Take a breath.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. But that's not even the part I wanted to take a bet on. So I took a bet, and the bet was with about 10 people, and we gave odds, and I put it through my little algorithm over how long it would take before IQ came up. And my bet was at 20 minutes, and about 4 or 5 people said we wouldn't get past opening, so it looks like I lost some money. Thank you, Fabian, for bringing IQ up within 12 minutes. My money was also on Grid to bring it up, so I didn't hit the parlay either.
I was going
damn, man, you didn't even hit the parlay.
Let's get through the openings,
because
I have a lot to say to
that. Go ahead.
That monologue.
Oh, don't you worry, I'm about to get to a lot of it. So.
Yeah.
All right. So starting with social welfare. Actually, let's start with. Can we start with the Somalis first? I'm going to stand up for my Nubian brothers and sisters here and first say that the Somalis that come to the United States do so with compassion-based immigration. If we want to, in hour 2, get to an argument over compassion versus merit-based immigration, we can. But that's the reason we hear people generally like a small percentage of our immigration being based around compassion and not all based off of merit. Otherwise, actually would hurt merit. But the reason of these people being here go from some of the lowest IQ, lowest earners in the first generation to see the most massive jump in the second generation. They essentially become acclimated. And unlike most of the work visas we have come to the United States, they stay. They stay long term. They live here generationally, and they actually assimilate long term. Whereas, again, we bring in more workers based off of merit. Those workers take that money and they send it back home to their families where they actually want to live long term. So generally having these people here is a good. Pigeonholing 70, 80 cases of fraud to an entire population of people and using it as an excuse to attack them on completely unrelated subjects is why the accusation of racism keeps getting thrown around. We can criticize these people doing fraud. I'm going to go a different route with it. I'm going to say this is the par for the course of what we see with the Democratic Party taking funding, giving it to NGOs, and receiving kickbacks for it. They receive kickbacks in all of their campaigns. Ilhan Omar wrote the Meals Act. She introduced it herself, and that was the exact policy that was used to create this fraud, and the fraud was going on by people that were contributing to her campaign before she even wrote the act, long before they got their money. So it does show that they were in bed together. I don't think we're ever going to get that concrete leak, just like the Buffalo Billion, just like other instances of fraud with, like, in California, where I think like $10 billion is unaccounted for. We're not going to see arrests anywhere but, like, it stops at the chief of staff. You're not going to see Cuomo arrested for the Buffalo Billion. You're not going to see Newsom arrested. You don't see Chris Christie arrested when he shut down that bridge. You see his top people get arrested. So we're never going to see the heads that we want from this. But at the end of the day, the Democratic abuse of NGOs is probably the biggest story here. They got kickbacks from almost all these groups, well, major groups, not every individual instance, but all these major groups that were doing the fraud were donating to the campaigns of the people pushing the policy, and it's still to the people defending them today. YouTubers going in and doing amateur reporting probably hurt the story more than it helped it. That guy probably did more harm than good at the end of the day. The only thing I got from that video was that somebody was yelling, "It's ICE, it's ICE." Like, we can suddenly evade federal law enforcement doing their constitutionally obligated job and not open the door while we're receiving federal funds? Fuck that. You hear it's ICE, you better open that motherfucking door. You get our federal money. That's all I got.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, and so we will talk about the Somali fraud. I'm going to turn it over to Wick because I know he's going to have umbrage with a bunch of what y'all said. However, we're going to talk about a lot of the fraud because there seems to be a lot of fraud. So let's start with the Somali fraud and we'll go from there. Go ahead, Wick. Kick us off.
So first of all, I'm not entirely... My problem with this is this seems to be a vehicle that people are using to kind of wedge in other issues there. Because we're not talking about fraud specifically here. And I think that Fabian Liberty brought up a whole bunch of things where he wants to attack the welfare state as a whole through this. A lot of people, and I'm not saying anyone here is doing this, but a lot of people want to attack immigration as a whole through this. And a lot of people want
kind of inexorably tied to this story, though, right?
Yeah, but if I may finish, right? Like, it's being tied to the story. Like, we can look at the biggest case of fraud in America, at least in recent history, and that's the PPP loans, right? Back in 2021, we had over some reports, if you include the EIDC stuff in there, like the emergency defense thing, it gets up to $200 billion.
Yeah.
That dwarfs the amount of fraud that we do here. But no one talks about that
Agreed.
because they can't use it to go after their favorite bugaboo, immigrants, right? But because it is immigrants...
Libertarian here, we love shitting on the PPP loans.
Here's the thing. If I may, and I'll let you guys go. I'll let you guys go, I promise, right? But my whole premise here, okay, is twofold. One, that this is being used as a vehicle to attack immigrants, and the same attention isn't being paid to the other types of fraud that are going on, right? And I think it's very telling that that's the case. And two, right, that when we have a media ecosystem that accused a Capitol Police officer of being the Jan 6 pipe bomber based on a gate analysis that the Blaze TV did, and it turns out they were totally wrong. They got the wrong person. So one, you have the whole story about Haitians in Ohio stealing pets to eat the cats and the dogs. Turned out to be totally false, pushed by J.D. Vance. It was wrong. When you have people who falsely accused the Palestinian student of being the Brown shooter, right, and killing those 11 or 12 students at the Brown shooting, and it turns out that that was totally wrong. At what point do we stop taking these people seriously when they continuously, every time it seems, get things wrong? When do we start saying that's all bullshit? Now again, like I said, there very well may be fraud at these places. If you find it, prosecute it. I don't still see evidence from the Shirley video.
But before Fabian gets started, I got just a couple of things. First, I don't think that the whole welfare is the issue. I don't think Fabian was saying that. I didn't get that at all from what he said. It's just this system is designed to be abused, and these people abused it, and that seems to be the fact since people are being prosecuted for that. You're welcome to say that the YouTube guy calling attention to it is wrong. That's fine. But I don't believe that you can say that if people are being prosecuted for it, that it probably didn't happen. I don't see where we get A to B. And I really got to take...
Hold on, did I say that, though? Did I say that there was?
You
wasn't
literally
fraud
said welfare state is not the issue. Welfare is not the issue, and that
Yeah,
Fabian going after bringing it up
because
is not.
hold on, Fabian said that it was designed to decrease the fertility rate of white people.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Do you
that
think
has
that's
nothing to do with the
true?
money.
Do you think the welfare
you're
system
picking
was
one little
designed to
piece.
increase the
He said
fertility
like
rate
a
of
lot of
white
different
people?
things. I didn't care about the white people part. I only cared about the money part that we're actually
Okay,
talking
well, that's what
about.
I was responding to, just to be clear.
Yeah. I mean, I'm focused on the topic. I don't care about any of the rest of it.
Hold on. Let me reframe this. I'm gonna play the Trump soothsayer because I feel like I do that a lot now because for whatever reason, maybe they're good or bad. But so I know we're gonna talk about this on Friday on Wix. Check it out; it's gonna be good. But we're going to like the administration has been pushing a larger narrative, and the narrative is that. It not only is it immigration, but it's kind of what Tyler was alluding to with the NGOs going out, and then it's coming back in and funding their campaign, and then they're using immigrants to like have illegal voting, and they get the welfare, and they basically are shipping in voting. That's the argument that they're making. Like, does anybody here see evidence of that?
But I don't think that was Wick's point.
I know that's not Wick's point.
Yeah. But before we get too far into that, couple of things. What Tyler talked about. So I'm going to take a little bit of issue with the first generation Somali glow up that you're trying to push. Yeah, look, the difference between working at a car wash and working at McDonald's is not a great leap there, pal. So I mean, I just don't. I mean, you can't make that. Look, these guys aren't working on Wall Street, brother. Like you're trying to make it sound like they make this great generational leap. But again, I just don't see how you're getting there.
Multiple
one
people
with the other.
doing the fraud were doctors. This is silly.
I don't believe
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I don't believe that that's true. I think you've smoked a little too much wacky weed today. Second, I don't really care that Omar
like that
sponsored-
the case of that judge threw out because it was quote circumstantial evidence, even though the state, even though that's all cases on fraud are basically circumstantial evidence, because like circumstantial evidence is everything other than direct eyewitness testimony, right? So financial records are circumstantial evidence. That case that kind of went viral because the judge threw it out. The individual in that case that defrauded the Medicare system was a doctor, right? So many of the people that were involved in the Medicare fraud are doctors, right? It's there are
for
plenty
sure.
of doctors that are committing the fraud as well.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that Tyler was trying to put this great spin on it that these Somalis come over and then the first generation, the next thing you know, they're like they're airline pilots for Delta or something, and I just don't buy that at all. The Ilhar Omar bill, I don't really care about.
Some of them do.
I understand that was fraud, but what I did care about, what I did find really interesting was the low level arrest. Yes, you're right. You're 100% right, and that's and that echoes kind of what I said about where we know that there's obviously fraud, right? I mean, the money's gone. They don't know where it went. There's obviously fraud. You're correct, I believe, that nobody above a certain level is going to get touched. That's how our politics in this country operate. But it kind of plays to the prompt of ought they not be prosecuted? Should there be a political force field around these people?
Sure, can I just
because
ask directly
I
what
just
your
don't see
evidence
that.
is that Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, or any of the big people that you want prosecuted? What's your evidence that they were
I didn't say who I wanted prosecuted.
We're not going to find it.
Can I finish my question? Either engaged in fraud or that they knew about the fraud and did nothing. Because I have evidence, right, that Tim Walz specifically put forth, what was it? Quite a bit of money in 2019 in order to add funding for new investigators, data analytics, fraud tracking at DHS, tighten oversight at CCAP, right? Like they took steps, and you can argue that they weren't enough, but they took steps to combat these frauds. And I do also want to point out that the arrests made and most of the convictions, 90% of the convictions that happened, were Democrats prosecuting and convicting these people.
I don't know who that's directed at.
That's directed at you. You keep saying there's obviously fraud that the Democrats are doing.
Well, sure.
Okay.
So you literally just said that there are people that were prosecuted for it.
Ilhan
Who were those?
Omar,
Were those people
Tim Walz,
Democrat or Republican
so
that
do
were
you think
prosecuted?
that Ilhan Omar is engaged in fraud?
I didn't make that claim. He made that claim, and I said I didn't care about it.
Okay. Well,
I didn't make that claim specifically. I mean, she has since 2019
Scott.
increased her net worth
Tyler
by
did, right?
66,676%, and her husband has beaten Warren Buffett on the stock market every year since then, which is, interesting, right? But I mean, like, not atypical of politicians to be engaged in corruption and fraud. They're all corrupt, right? Like if you're voting for a politician, it's a corrupt piece of shit
Okay,
thief
well,
that
can I
should
just ask
probably be
directly
killed
then, just so we can
and
get
drawn
a-
and quartered
just so-
publicly for the crimes that they've committed against the American people.
Just so I'm aware of your all's takes here, I'll just ask directly: who here thinks that Tim Walz or Ilhan Omar or any of the ones senators, House House representatives, have engaged in fraud here? Who thinks that?
Just like speculates
Engaged in
it?
No,
Or
who has evidence for that?
Oh, we're not going to get evidence.
I mean, if I had
Okay,
evidence,
so
I'd have
no
already turned
evidence.
it in,
Okay, gotcha.
right?
Well,
I mean,
there's
so
already-
the Senate,
there's no
the
investigation.
congressional,
Because
the
I'll
congressional
concede to
committee.
you that some of the Democrats at the state level obviously did.
Did anybody
commit
listen
fraud.
to the congressional committee today, other than me?
I looked at the highlights. I was
watching
busy
I
today.
unfortunately was busy.
All right,
We
so
just
if you
started
watch,
an
it's fine.
investigation.
Right. If you watched it at all today, right, then obviously there's no smoking gun of like Tim Walz or any of these people signing a document saying that, like, there is no smoking gun as of right now. And I highly doubt that they'll find one, even if they did a genuine, thorough investigation. What we do know, right, is that Tim Walz put money forward to it was $5 million to have additional investigations into fraud. We know that. We know that he took some level of action. We also know that the lieutenant governor, and a lot of these people were getting a lot of check blue money from the very organizations that were some of which are accused, some of which were prosecuted for fraud. We know that the administration in their process and the Walz administration changed with that $5 million. They changed the DHS in Minnesota from specifically targeting and trying to investigate fraud to overbilling, and created committees to try and recoup money to some degree. And so while they put in more money for investigation, they moved away very much from criminal investigations into going through documents and being like, hey, can we recoup some of this money? Is that tacit support or not? It's like a lot more investigation is going to have to go through to what level to what level they were complicit in specific stealing, fraud, right? That is not necessarily my overarching argument. I agree with you, your characterizations, Wick, of my argument. I don't need to be defended against those characterizations because they're not mischaracterizations. I agree that people are tying this to immigration and to Somalians specifically. I agree that people are tying this to welfare. I think that is good, and I think that they are inexorably linked. And I think it is a very, I think it is a debate bro tactic to try and isolate what is happening and what is occurring from the overarching problems of the welfare state and from immigration policy to try and say, no, we just need to focus specifically on is this one daycare center, do we have the evidence to prove that this is fraud or not fraud, when we do have a ballooning welfare state that is putting the middle class into inexorable amounts of debt and destroying this country.
Just real quick,
before you go ahead, Wick. After Wick goes, I'm going to get Ollie in here to give an intro. Quick.
When you say the welfare state, are you including Medicare, Medicaid, stuff like that?
I'm including all of it, right?
Okay.
So I would include farming subsidies.
Yeah.
I would include.
I got you.
I would include all of it. Social Security.
Yeah.
Right?
So almost all of that 1.4 trillion you mentioned that going toward the quote unquote welfare state goes to old people, right? It a vast majority goes to caring for old people specifically. So if we want to look at the problem with this, right, it isn't daycare centers or welfare as a whole to working class individuals, right? It's
I disagree with that.
The vast majority of it goes towards old people and the health care for old people.
I disagree with that characterization. When you have, according to the committee today, we have well, you said right that that you wanted me to agree to you saying that the issue is old people and not fraud or welfare system in general. That is you're correct that the boomers are the major recipients of the welfare state. That doesn't magically mean that fraud in Minnesota at the conservative estimate of $9 billion, which is more than we've sent to Israel in aid since the beginning of October 7th, is somehow not an issue, right? Both are an issue. The redistribution towards poor boomers, right? Like, I don't care. Like, I made the assertion.
This is
I know it's not a trick.
It
There's
is.
no trick.
Because you say we can't focus on one thing, and then I try to make a more holistic argument, and you're like, well, we have to. See, he's dodging from focusing on this one thing. What are you doing, man?
That's not a trick. That's not a trick. You're trying to use what I attacked you on and reverse Uno it, but you're failing because it's just not true. What I'm saying is the meta argument is very simple. $1.4 trillion being spent. If that money was simply redistributed to the poor, that would be $70,000 for every household in America that is defined as poor. If you're not poor, you don't need government assistance, whether or not you're fucking young or old.
We're going to come back to that in a second because I actually have something I want to bring up in a moment about that. But let's get all in here, and then you can go ahead and give us an intro and your thoughts on if we should prosecute Democrats for widespread fraud.
Yeah, man, the first thing I want to say is fuck everyone for making me watch that Nick Shirley video. Jesus, that kid is the most annoying, insufferable kid. And but okay, your question. When you say Dems, like, I don't know what you like. Democrats in Minnesota? Do you mean like Tim Walz? What do you mean by Dems? Because no, I've seen people run scams in all red states, blue states. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, if you want me to answer that, I'll answer that and I'll let you go back. But like, so I guess where I'm coming from is when I try to do these shows, I try to bring like what I hear from my normies friends, right? This is like what they're saying, and I try to bring it here, and I like to have our internet brain boys come and argue about whatever the normies think is happening, right? And the conspiracy theory that I'm hearing, whether or not it's conspiracy theory or not, is it's pretty widespread. But the idea is they're bringing people here, they're spending our tax dollars on them, they're using it to like get people elected, and then it goes all the way to the top. In fact, we can look, Walz was behind all this, and look, he was the VP candidate. So the whole Democratic Party's evil, and we need to, I don't know, tear them down brick by brick. That is like an argument that I'm seeing.
Everything you just said doesn't require fraud, by the way.
Sure,
Everything that you just said just requires the welfare state.
Their argument is that the fraud.
I'm just pointing out all of the things that you stated. Importing people from other countries, giving them resources, saying that we're the ones that we're going to help you, giving them a bunch of aid. None of that requires any fraud whatsoever. For that conspiracy to be true. What you just described is factually true without any fraud.
Well, then let me give you some of the more fringe parts of the conspiracy. Oh, Melissa Hortman, well, she knew she was killed by someone with Walz connections, right? He knew it was murder, it was assassin, right? Like, there's like it goes pretty widespread.
No one here's saying that, to be clear.
Sure. No one's saying that. I'm not saying that either. I'm just bringing this up because I feel like it's a topic that's not being discussed in the way I think it should be, which is that it's like an internet, like a nasty onion.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a dick. It was just really important that I pointed out that whole conspiracy is true.
Let Ollie finish.
It doesn't require fraud.
We'll open it back up again. Go ahead, Ollie.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I hear all that. That argument never makes sense to me. The idea that that Democrat politicians are immigrating people in to win votes, and then it's to their own detriment, right? If this is at the end of the day racism, it's to their own detriment. Their white people are losing out, right? And they're hearing you because Gavin Newsom is he's cozying up to the Groypers. He's posting his old school badass basketball photos. He has his white family on for he's mogging on JD Vance. So we got all that going on. All I'm saying is for this, I haven't seen anyone necessarily defend this, right? Everyone I've seen who's watched this video, all the Democrats I've seen have been like, if there's fraud, prosecute, get it the fuck out of here. So when you say should Dems be held liable, the only way I see them held liable is potentially it's easier to scam in a democratic state because they have better social social nets and social policies. So it's easier. Maybe if you want to go towards negligence, if you want to go towards something like that, I can agree with there on negligence potentially, right? But the biggest concern I've heard is that people were concerned. The Democrats were covering this up for concerns of racism, right? Because they were concerned that people would call them racist. But then in the video and even in the reviews I've seen, Democrats did try to They reviewed a few people of these licenses. They took some of these licenses down. I mean, they were shutting these people down for certain failures. A couple of them were like failures to some of the kids weren't vaccinated. Some of the workers weren't vaccinated, right? Like all these things. So like they were, in there and investigating and doing all that. So maybe negligence.
You laid out the trick. You laid out the trick that Democrats are doing, right? What they're doing is they're saying, of course, fraud is bad. Of course. Hold on. Right. Yeah. You laid out the trick. They go, of course, fraud is bad. Of course, these things.
Fair.
And then when people are like, well, then we need to shut this shit down and fix it. They go, but Trump shutting down the money in the stem of the flow that is rampant with fraud is making children starve, and it's evil. And so
I don't
course
think
they'll
you're,
tell
like,
you to your
allowed to-
face
I
that we
don't
should
think it's-
prosecute the
it's
fraud.
I don't think
but they're
it's smart.
supporting the system that incentivizes massive
It's not
amounts of
smart to
fraud.
just shut down all of the fucking system overnight, right? Just because you
It
find out
is.
for fraud.
That is the right thing to do.
Mind you,
On a
this
YouTube
isn't even
video.
fraud. This
Hold on,
the
hold on,
Nick
hold on,
Shirley video
hold on,
isn't new.
hold on,
The
hold
Nick
on.
Shirley video isn't new. In 2000, like I think a few years ago, they were doing reviews on this. CNN was doing reviews on this. Like this isn't new, right? Like I'm not saying that it's good or that we should let it go, but you can't just shut shit down overnight because of a YouTube.
Fraud
video.
has always existed. What's new is the ever increasing amounts of fraud and the ever increasing amounts of this community having the balls of Democrat politicians tightly grasped to the point that they're doing mea culpas about the
I don't even
racism
think
of
it's
Trump
Democrat
and talking
politicians.
about like, I grew up Jewish, so I know what it's like to be bullied in the neighborhood,
think
and they're
it's the
sitting there
politicians, or do
laughing
you
in their
think-
fucking face, going,
Yes, I think it's politicians.
as they're stealing money from
do
them,
you think it's
wearing
politicians?
$2,000 glasses,
do think
making
it's
up shit about their
politicians,
daycare
Give me
center
that.
getting
Let me give you
broken
my-
into.
Let's go to Grid. Grid, go ahead. What
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
think is
Wait,
politicians?
Grid, real quick.
Okay,
Let me just
right.
give you a bounce off real quick. You'll play off of it. So like it's either politicians, which I don't think it's like Tim Walz approving this. Rather, I think it's people within the community who maybe got like work within like a local, not necessarily government, but those like assistants. These are people who probably went to school. They know how to work the program, so they're doing the cover ups. I think it's an inter community thing, right? I don't necessarily think it's politicians that are doing it.
Nah, they're too
That's
stupid
kinda
to
what
be
I'm
able to
saying.
pull it off to this degree.
That's a great point, but I'm gonna I'm gonna put this to Wick and Fabian, because I these guys are each gonna have a different opinion on this. And I think I know which way it's gonna go. So if it's the case, Wick, that Walz did all of these, which I believe it is, that he'd put all of these task force in place, he tried to get the enforcement up, he did all of
Listening, I'm
those
just
things.
grabbing a
If that's the case, why is it that the only actual investigations and prosecutions have come from the national government and not the state government?
Well, I think
Because they're federal loans that the people have, right? That a lot of it's some federal money.
But the state can prosecute for fraud in their state.
And to be clear, a lot of them kicked it up to the FBI when they realized that the scope was probably beyond their resources, right? We would just cede to me, right, that the federal government has more resources at their hand.
I think you could assume
than
that happened. I don't think
Correct?
there's any
Is that
evidence
true?
that happened.
There is for the major case, the autism case. There's documented evidence that Keith Ellison and the state government worked with the federal government for that like big one. I think it was like
I mean, and
hundreds of millions.
And I can't
Okay,
give
so
you
one
every
out of,
single
like,
case of
1,000?
fraud that happened and whether or not and how the state government worked with the federal government. It's beyond the scope of what my answer can be to you. However, I can say that in the instances, if you find instances where state government actively obstructed the federal government's investigation of these things, I'm for prosecuting that or holding them accountable. But what I haven't seen is evidence that that's the case, and that's what I'm asking you. Do you have evidence that the someone at the state level obstructed the federal government's investigation?
In March of 2025, a federal judge found Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, was not telling the truth. That means he was lying about stopping payments on these to these nonprofits. That he said that he did, but he in fact did not. And a federal judge found that to be true. And there were claims of racism that were made, and the case was thrown out. Now, whether or not you agree with that, that is the facts, right? I don't give a shit whether you agree with it. That's the facts. It happened.
Well, the case got thrown out.
This again. You
Hold on,
can't.
when you say the case was
I'm
thrown
just
out, what do you
asking if you want to say that the Democrats at the state level or even the federal level are they want the same things the Republicans want, and they're trying to do a good job. you cannot prove it, or you've not been able to prove it. I don't have to prove that anybody that commits fraud should be charged with fraud. I don't care what party they are. Sure. But what we have is a proven arc of Democrats in positions to regulate these programs, repeatedly either failing to do their job, which, okay, fire them, or maybe put them in jail if it's criminally negligent, or in the damn programs, that's best option, or admit that Democrats cover for each other and they're just not going to go to fucking jail.
Well, you said that he was found the facts of a case that got thrown out.
Yes,
and
he was found. A federal judge found he was not telling the truth.
Do you mean that the case was found in favor of Tim Walz?
It was not found in favor of Tim Walz. A federal judge found that Tim Walz was not telling the truth about
then why was the case
stopping
thrown out?
Payments to these nonprofits that were defrauding the government. In fact,
why was the case thrown out that you're referring to?
Wait,
why was it
he
thrown out?
did perjury? Claims of racism made, and the case was thrown out.
So let me ask. Oh, hold on. So just to be clear, because someone said that the case was racist, the case got thrown out?
No, they filed. I know what he's talking about. They filed a racial suit against the state for persecution against the Somali community, and it held up the investigation on the state level that was being done.
So was the case thrown out?
I think that it didn't get settled in time, and the federal government stepped in and took over. I don't think we saw a conclusion to it.
Well, the federal I guess
halted at best. I think halted.
Let me just pause this because I think we're going down a little rabbit hole. Like, what is the like? And this is the same question I know I've got asked for like the Trump stuff when he got convicted and all these stuff, and I said it was a witch hunt and whatever. Like, I guess we're at a point now. It seems like, what is the standard that y'all are going to accept as like, what did you say, interfering with the case? Would it be like, oh, someone is going to go get testimony about fraud happening and they get fired the day before they're supposed to give? Or would it be like, oh, they're doing this like race case where they're using lawfare? What is like the standard for interference? Let's go to Lenny.
Yeah. That's easy to answer though for you. Like, it's like any email that says like giving them some sort of tips on order how to get away with what they're doing. Oh. Any coordination saying, hey, we're going to give you this money, make sure you donate back to us.
Any tangible involvement between one and the other. It's going to be any involvement, simple. Really. If Tim, I don't know any of the other people in politics, but if Tim Walz was talking to any of the daycares, right? If there's any email between like any of the politicians.
Do we have any evidence
that smoke. Any of that There's more than enough smoke to merit the investigation.
Well, wait. So like, okay, as far as I know, growing up in Dearborn, large Lebanese community, we had this thing called Access, right? It was people who didn't necessarily work in the government, but they would help. They knew enough English and they were here long enough. Maybe they were second generation, third generation people. And they would help like non-English speaking people like fill out forms for businesses, fill out forms for so on and so forth. Like, sure. Why does it have to be that the
vote?
How to vote, whatever, where to vote,
for
so
someone,
on and so forth.
Even if they don't have an ID or any proof of residence, up to 7.
Well, if this whistleblower accusation,
but I'm saying like there are probably it's probably more likely that there are these resources in like Minneapolis, right, where there is like a center for like Somali people that can go to help them file these paper. It's more likely that group would be like involved in the fraud than people that are like finagling, because with a lot of these daycares, it was they said in the video it would say like 2 daycares were run out of the same place, but really it showed like there was a daycare in 2022 and 2023, and then it changed names, or it seemed to have changed names in 2024 and 2025. So it seems like it doesn't seem.
Some of them were shut down, right? They came.
Some of them were shut down and then they reopened under a different name. Yeah.
Yeah, they would get investigated for committing fraud.
Yeah.
And then they would shut down.
Yes.
They would wait a month or two. They'd reopen.
Different name,
same owner, I assume, or 100%. Maybe change, maybe the wife instead of the husband.
We see corporations do this all the time.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, this isn't. I mean, that's what's called fraud.
100%. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying there isn't fraud happening. I'm saying I don't think it's the politicians enabling the fraud. That's kind of what I'm saying.
So the politicians have to enable it because they're the ones that sign off on it. They're the ones that.
They could be getting frauded. They're getting scammed as well.
Tyler, go ahead.
The question at the end of the day, whistleblowers can be verified in any way that's enough proof to prove they were culpable. But I kind of want to go like back to what Wick was saying earlier with the old people being the majority of spending with the programs. The boomers are getting there now. Scott wants to get rid of the state, but democracy is very in favor of these social programs, especially Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and things like that. So we need to grow.
It's not
the
an
state.
argument against my claim to just say
It's not,
just
but it's
then
what they
attack me
want.
for being an ANCAP, right? Yeah, but you're not
That's
actually
what
attacking.
people want. We have
no,
to
no,
be practical.
okay, yeah,
I'm
I
not
don't give a.
attacking, I'm
I
just
don't.
saying. we have to be
What you were
practical.
doing. What you are doing is you are using that as a vector to attack my ideology instead of the claim that I am making. And the claim that I am making is that $1.4 trillion spent on welfare is redistributed to the poor, whether they are elderly or not,
I get that.
would result in $70,000 a year in funds to those
I
people.
understand that,
And
but
if
the
you're
point is,
and so if
maybe
you're
maybe I'm
making if you're making
mistaken.
70 plus 30, you ought to be able to afford your fucking
Hold on.
medical
But
expenses.
maybe I'm mistaken. We aren't here to argue the welfare state. We're here to argue fraud.
Yeah,
I am 110% here to argue that this is with inexorably linked, and that this is a feature, not a bug. That what is occurring in Minnesota is occurring throughout the entire country, and that what we're and that the welfare system is a system that is designed to strangle the middle class, and in part, in my opening statement, as I stated, is a eugenics program to ensure that high IQ, productive, conscientious people that are predominantly going to be white people here in America, if we were in fucking China, it would probably predominantly be Chinese people, to keep them from creating businesses, owning homes, having large families, and to create a two-tiered system of imported, low IQ, poor people that are constantly fighting for breadcrumbs from the government while the wealthy elite and corporations steal all our fucking money. I am here to argue that.
Let me finish the sentence.
I have evidence of every one of those fucking claims.
Hold on, I'm trying to get into this because your framing is a little wild. But again, most people want these social programs, so we have to think of a practical way to do it. So I'm trying to explain why we need compassion-based immigration.
Yeah, redistribute the money.
Hold on.
Just redistribute the money. Are you poor?
People don't want money handed to them. We're giving money away to give the government to get the government to do things for them. Here, take our money.
You sure about that?
Yes.
You sure that if I go to a random poor person out on the street and say, would you rather have all of the government programs that you have right now, or would you rather get $70,000 a year in a paycheck?
No, I'm not
from
sure
the
if you go to a single anecdotal person and ask them, but if you go to the
I didn't say anecdotal. Let's do a poll.
Majority of the country,
we're doing
yes,
UBI now.
these
Let me just
programs are very popular.
hold on. Let me just reframe this a little bit, really. Like two Fabians put on 70K. We don't have to use that example, right? I think another example that's in the news right now, we have the alleged fraud in California that's up potentially 250
Ohio
billion.
too,
yeah. But well, I only did the math on one of them. So, $250 billion allegedly spent in California, right? So I did the math, right? That's about $750 per person could have gone in your pocket, right? And so now we don't have the proof yet that it's happened. There's no proof, but in my mind, to your point, what's better? Is it you have the check or you don't have?
Yeah, let me explain something. Let me just give you an example.
I agree.
They had a California, San Francisco. I apologize. San Francisco had a housing program, right? And there was a wonderful kind of I forget the guy's name. He's a YouTuber turned real estate mogul that does financial things. And his big claim to fame is that he doesn't raise rents on people because he makes more money by not raising rents. Because if you have a good tenant, why raise their rent and gamble with them leaving and then getting a new tenant that might be super shitty? That it's just more profitable for him to keep the rent the same and not raise rents. So he saw this program that San Francisco put forward. And what the program was is it was supposed to turn units or buildings that weren't necessarily single family housing, or they were really big houses, into duplexes. And this is an expedited process. And what ended up happening is he spent a bunch of money to turn it into an apartment building, or like an apartment or a little small house for someone, right? He went through the inspection. There was a $15 item. The inspector didn't want to wait, so he had to get a new inspection. Upon the new inspection, they said that, actually, you need to pay one of our approved lenders to use a camera and go through your sewage line to make sure that everything's good. So then he had to wait a couple weeks. He paid for that. Then they said, there's a crack at the sewer line where it meets with the city at the road. That's going to cost you $22,000, and you need to get an approval from the city. By the way, the law requires that you give 60 days notice to the supposed moving in tenants that there's going to be things that are going to get done. So he fights through that. He gets in another inspection. Once he gets another inspection, they say the sidewalk has tree roots, and those tree roots are damaging the sidewalk that the city owns. So you need to pay that. By the way, there's a 60-day approval process. And what ended up happening is he lost almost $100,000, and he had to pay government-approved lenders, companies that work with the government that have special access to the government, as he was bled and dried of almost 6 figures and no rent. And this is an expedited program. This is how welfare actually works, is that it is designed to enrich people's political donors, designed to enrich the system, designed to enrich the wealthy so that we can create bullshit affordability programs that don't help the poor. And that's why we're spending $1.4 trillion and poor people are still fucking poor. This is a feature. It is meant to create fraud.
Go ahead.
If he's going to tell a story, I'm going to tell a story. When I was out of work, right, if we're going to do anecdote and
Story
narrative,
time?
right? When I was out of work before I joined the military, right, there was a period of time I'd gotten laid off from my job, not fired, right? And I was out of work for a little bit. Thank God that they had unemployment for me in the state that I was in, so I could pay a little bit of my bills and get through that time and get back on my feet. The idea that it was specifically designed to destroy white people and to bring in low IQ immigrants, right, is insanity.
Who pays for it?
It is not
pays for
backed
that?
in fact, and
Who pays for that government
plenty
program?
of evidence
Hold on,
of
let me finish.
welfare actually
Who
helping
pays for that
people
program?
get through.
The
I am an
voter.
example of welfare.
Who pays for
helping
that
someone
program?
Get on their feet, right? But we're not here
Who pays for the
to talk
unemployment?
about the welfare state. We're here to talk about
I'm
whether
here to
or
talk
not
about the welfare state. Who
Democrats
pays
are
for
to
it?
blame
Let me-
for fraud, and specifically
Who pays
through the
for it?
lens of
Who pays for
Minnesota.
it?
So
Who pays unemployment? Who pays
The
unemployment?
voter.
Man,
The
it doesn't
voter.
matter. I'm glad it
No.
was there.
Well,
No,
so-
the business pays unemployment insurance. That is money that is taken out of your paycheck every single time that you get a paycheck, because you cost payroll taxes, unemployment insurance, and a whole bunch of other taxes in order to hire you. You could have been making $6, $7, $8 more an hour that entire time and actually saved money, gotten into a better position, and been better off in your life.
I'm
The
glad
employer
that
is
it wasn't
paying
that
for that.
case,
hold
'cause
on.
I
Let me
would've spent it, and I'm glad
move it.
that the state held that money back, and I voted for those benefits.
So you're saying
because
you're retarded with your
government
money?
is important.
You're saying
and I
you couldn't have
consented to
used
be
that money
governed
more
by
effectively?
most
law.
people are retarded with their money, yes.
Hold on. So here's the okay. I get that there is the greater conversation. Actually, I think Wick actually said this in the opening about like wanting to be attached to more things. But I think that there's more direct link for like what these conspiracy people are saying, right? I'm gonna post a couple links right here in the group chat. This is gonna be one of them. So Minnesota is also under fire for their voucher voting system, right? And they're
I brought
also
that up. Yeah.
yeah, I believe you did. And they also are under fire because Trump, like I guess, lost Minnesota by 139,000, and now according to public records and some election official, allegedly there's 193,000 duplicate votes, and so now they're opening up an investigation into voting. And I actually looked, and apparently this has been an ongoing issue. There's a claim that in 2022, 583 votes were the deciding factor in a local election, and they
Like I said, you don't need fraud.
Yeah,
You just need the government programs that the Democrats created to fuck over the middle class.
The point that I'm making, and I guess I'm making for the people that aren't here, and I guess that I wanted really to talk about with this panel, is there seems to be some kind of connection between the money going out to the NGOs and then coming back to the Dems, and then potential voting fraud and like why these people coming. Do you, Ali, do you or Wick see this as a potential thing? Because I know like Fabi wants to talk about the welfare, and that is appealing to me, but. Like, if we're not going to talk about the welfare, do y'all see like this grand conspiracy? Do y'all see the potential that this is happening?
Well, can I just ask you, like, how?
Sure.
So, how much kickbacks did the Dems get in your mind, like monetarily, from all these fraudulent organizations? And who got those kickbacks? How much were they? Can you show me the numbers on these?
Yeah, I can find a
Please
clip,
do.
but yeah, it's thousands.
A lot of it was
I think
brought
it's
up in the
more-
congressional committee.
yeah.
A lot of these people got hundreds of thousands of dollars from the same people. Specifically the oh God, what was it? The
Is it PAC money?
No, not it. It was the fuck. What is it
Yeah,
called?
to be clear, what I'm asking for.
Feeding Our Future.
I got you.
Right, the
I got
Feeding
you.
Our Future that got
He
prosecuted.
wants to know which Democrat is
$50
benefiting
million
from the-
Yeah,
that they
but
did in
scam.
fraud.
To be clear, the
and
Democrats
local politicians
prosecuted
got
them.
over $100,000.
35 million
Democrats
is from the daycares. Is the one.
were
Yeah, I have
the ones who brought this to the federal attention, and the Democrats were the ones that prosecuted them. So if the Democrats are getting kickbacks from them, it obviously didn't stop them from stopping the Feed Our Futures fraud.
Yeah. You do realize that Democrats aren't one person, right? That there's multiple people. There's going to be some
Neat.
Democrats that give a fuck
Interesting.
and care about
So
fraud
maybe
and
we
want
should
to investigate
only
things.
go
And then
after
there's
the
going to be other
who are
Democrats.
engaged in fraud and not try to paint.
Do you think
the
you made a
broad
bright
brush of
point
the
here?
Democratic
Literally
Party.
no
Thanks
one-
for making my point, you fucking retard. Jesus
I think
Christ.
you might be the retard
Talking
here.
about Somalian
No one
level
here
IQ.
is arguing.
Here we have a good example of it.
It's
I'm
literally
way
the-
smarter than you, Wick. Come on.
Not
Let's
in
be
any
real.
world, in
it is
any
the
shape,
prompt,
way,
right?
or
The
form.
prompt
You have
is,
never
should Dems
demonstrated
be-
that.
Brother-
You have
brother,
never
you are-
shown
brother,
that.
you are
You've
the
lost
midwit
every
of
single
midwits.
argument we've ever
so,
had.
hold on, all right,
I don't
You
know
already
what to
lost
tell
every
you.
single argument.
So
In fact, you're
moving on.
reaffirming
So,
that
all right.
Somalians have low IQ.
All right, let's
You're
go to- let
fucking
me-
conceding the
let me
point
go
that
to-
they're fucking
Insulting
functionally
you.
retarded.
Let me go to Ollie. I don't care so much about the who's with audit combo. Listen, we're all with audit. Anyway, here you go, Ollie. Go ahead.
I think the most likely is that it leans towards like for votes, right? You bring you have the NGOs that go and they find these people and they bring them in, and you know, to Fabian's point, American elite want a immigrant poor class to control in America, which to an extent doesn't just
They're
make
just
white
adding to it.
people-
That's not my point. Just be
Yeah.
very clear.
Oh,
Like
okay.
they want a poor class that loves.
But it helps that
social
if a lot of them are
programs.
immigrants.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
if you're trying like it doesn't, it's not like there's like some fucking dude with like a big Jewish nose rubbing his hands together creating this whole thing. It's a matter of incentive.
Well, no, that's what Gibbs. That's what Gibbs' friends are
like,
saying.
It's like if you are a Democrat, right? You are a socialist, right? Like there's no such thing as a Democrat that isn't a socialist, obviously.
Well,
And so when
Republicans
you're a
are socialist too in
socialist
your
Democrat,
eyes.
most Republicans would be socialist, correct?
That's
The
just, as
overwhelming
long as we
majority.
have that caveat,
Right? They
Yeah.
love so you are vote. You are a
bullshit.
representative of the party that wants more social programs, that wants more NGOs involved,
Yes.
right? That wants a
Yes.
bigger government to help the poor, etc. It is in your best interest to do two things: to enrich yourself and create connections with the wealthy elite so that you can have more power and more money. And it is also within your interest to do whatever it takes to have a large base voter class that is interested in social programs. And so if that means giving it to immigrants, and that means there's more people that can in a few years vote for you, that's the incentive, right? It's not like they're like, how can we absolutely get the Somalians here? It's like, how can we get low IQ, poor people to want more and more social programs that end up having big kickbacks to all my NGO, wealthy people that
Abe
run
Lincoln
these
wants
programs.
the slaves freed for the vote. I get the
1%
point.
of the vote, libertarian take up 60% of the talking time. So to go back to what Gibbs is actually talking about here, these donations.
Sorry, I'm in teacher mode. I'm just trying
Why-
to educate you guys so you can understand what's going on.
Nobody's going to vote for it either way. We want our social program. But anyways, going back to these kickbacks here, like I don't see donations as proof of guilt. You're going to have to show me there was some clandestine meeting to say that this is something that was worked out. Because these groups, if the fraud was unknown by the politicians, of course they're going to donate to the politicians that are saying they're going to continue to fund
No
them.
one working there was thinks that the fraud was unknown. Like
We don't know
everyone
that
knows
yet.
that fraud is rampant in this system.
We
It's
just
literally
don't
and
know
we
that
know that.
Omar
We all know
and-
that. You know that. You're lying right now.
I'm not lying. We don't
You
know it.
you know
because
that
everyone-
everyone that has been you know that
I
everyone that has been
speculated.
that has
Grid, you're looking
that has
great, by the way.
that had power to
Great.
and had authority and was supposed to be in charge in some capacity of tracking this shit knows that, by the way, knows that these places were also involved in PPP fraud loans.
That's
right? Like there's
speculation.
several daycare
Everyone was
centers that were
involved in
taking PPP loans.
fraud.
We're speculating.
Right. Well, we
I
brought
agree
it
with
up,
you.
but it ties to this as well, right?
We
Like
just don't have
we
that
all know.
proof yet. We don't have that
We don't
proof
have
yet.
we don't have proof that a specific daycare place is engaged in the certain amount of fraud, right? Like we look at the Quality Learning Center and we know that they got investigated and then got their license back like 20 times. You can go just look on the Minnesota website. And we know that legally, they are not legally allowed to operate a daycare center after 6 p.m. because their license is for normal waking hours. They are a daycare, not an afternoon care program. Their license doesn't allow them to be open from 2 to 10.
That's
10
inaccurate.
PM.
You're misrepresenting it. These are.
I'm not
these are
misrepresenting. Do you have
example
proof of that?
hours. They aren't firm, hard, fast requirements.
There is a specific licensing for afternoon care programs. They're not licensed for that. They're licensed for quote unquote normal waking hours, which is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we know that their paperwork. That doesn't mean that doesn't okay, yeah, but 2 to 10 p.m. is not that when there is a license for that, which is afternoon care. That being said, that doesn't prove that they're fraudulent. It just proves that like maybe if the most charitable interpretation is that they're like retarded to the point where they can't get a sign that says Quality Learning Center, and so their like paperwork's all fucked up.
What we know is Ilhan Omar wrote the Meals Act, and Ilhan Omar wasn't born here. She's not one of those intelligent Somalis in the first generation. You know what I'm talking about? She's one of those inbreds with that fucking 60 IQ or whatever you guys are talking about.
I want to like come back to this.
He's probably smarter than the typical
I want to come back to this
right?
this cash that's being flowing out of the daycare.
Because her family were wealthy elite in Somalia that committed genocide against their own people.
We'll come back.
So she's probably higher IQ.
Hold on. We're gonna talk about Ilhan Omar in a moment. All right, that's fine. We'll come back to that. I do want to focus on what we're talking about right now, though, which is, do we have a problem? And like, I know I personally have a problem if it was a Republican or a Dem, since we're doing this little thing. If I got government funding for my business and then I turned around and I was spending that money on political campaigns, like now, I agree we haven't fully approved this.
It's a corrupt incentive structure. It doesn't necessarily prove fraud.
What?
I'm saying it's a corrupt incentive structure if you have businesses that are potentially engaged in fraud and getting, or at the very least getting a ton of government money, and then some of that government money goes to the very people that are supposed to investigate whether or not they deserve that government money.
No.
Yeah, that's called. Hold on, that's what we. You know what we call that? That's called a protection racket, right? You go down there.
Government is a protection racket.
Yeah. Like, wait, hold on. I like if I'm in the mob. Let's say I'm the cartel and I open up a business and I say, you're going to give me $1,000 every fucking month, for protection. That's one thing. That's different, right? But there's no fundamental
difference. That's what taxes are.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sure. I guess you could say, but there's a difference between, hey, we're going to cut you this kickback and then I'm going to turn right around and I'm going to donate $1,500 to like 15 campaigns, like, so that y'all can get elected. Like, that seems like there's a systematic, like, in place system that this is what, like, these people that voted for Bernie originally and voted for MAGA now. They're saying that there's been a uniparty that's been sitting here and has been like a deep state almost. And like, I don't agree with this idea that it is, but I do see this idea that there are like structures in place that keep these people in power that are illegal. It seems like
it's like, it's what George Carlin said, right? You don't
it's all this innuendo. We all know you can't
so
really
it's like what
prove
George
it.
Carlin
There's no
said.
really
You
evidence
don't
for it.
a conspiracy
but we're just
when
gonna say we all
interests
know.
align,
Nudge, nudge,
right?
wink, wink. Like, show me the evidence and we can prosecute it. We know we can because Biden's DOJ did that.
You don't give a fuck about the fraud.
Actually
Stop.
prosecute.
Stop
They
being
got
silly.
actual evidence. They went forth and did actual investigations. They did actual court proceedings, and they actually got convictions. All this innuendo bullshit is just that bullshit. Give us facts, give us figures, give us connections, make those connections for us.
Do you think 1,000?
Don't just say
you think
shit.
1,000 federal agents should go in and go through all of the paperwork?
So is this the same standard we have for Epstein?
Do you think it would be a good thing if Trump sent in 1,000 federal agents to go through all of the paperwork?
If you have
at
evidence,
the government level,
investigate it. Whatever it takes to investigate that, I'm for.
Well, the reason
awesome. So you support that.
Hold on, the reason
again, I'm gonna. He interrupted me, so I just want to.
Interrupted you, brother. You're going on this directed, extended cut Lord of the Rings fucking rant. We're not here to watch your fucking movie. We're here to have a discussion.
You know why Lord of the Rings is so long? Because it's so good.
Because you're in teacher mode.
I'm just so good. That's why I'm going so long.
Again,
you just shut the fuck up. You just shut the fuck up. I'd get to it real quick. So I get it. You're not here to have a discussion of
I'm here
any
to talk
merits
about fraud
other
of the
than your
Democrats.
defense
You're bringing
of
up
the
Somali
fraud.
IQ.
So anyways, Yeah,
Jesus
Somali
Christ.
IQ is a big part of this
All right,
discussion.
you got-
but
you got,
regardless,
like,
I just want to say
30
this
seconds.
again. It's like George Carlin said, you don't need a conspiracy when like interests align. Just because these people are donating a bunch of money to Democrats doesn't necessarily mean that there is collusion. It is in the interests of the Democrats to not go after the people that are funding their campaign. And it's in the interests of the people that are doing a bunch of fraud to give money to Democrats so that they feel like we're buddy, and so that they feel a certain way. You don't actually have to have a smoking
it's
gun
in the
of like
public
a
interest
meeting
of
that they had
opponents of
to send an
Democrats and
email and
opponents
being
of
like,
these
you
people
give me
to
this much
make
money
shit
and I'll
up.
protect you.
Okay. Go.
What is being made up? What is the problem?
I-
there?
I
so-
don't know, because you haven't said anything of substance. You haven't given me anything to chew
said
on.
a lot.
It's all vagaries. You've given me
so-
vagaries.
Let me.
I've given. So you don't deny the numbers that I've given on.
You haven't
welfare?
given me any
You don't-
numbers.
I have. You argued.
Okay, what
against
are the
them.
numbers you've given me?
The $1.4 trillion and the $70,000 to every poor family.
Okay, that
and the
has nothing to do
redistribution
with
of that
fraud.
instead of welfare programs.
That's you arguing
Absolutely
about
it
the welfare
does.
state. I'm not here to
Absolutely
argue
it
about the
does.
welfare
It
state.
has
I'm here
absolutely
arguing about
everything to do with fraud. Because if there was no fraud whatsoever and there wasn't kickbacks and all of these corporate fucking things and vendors and bureaucracy and it was just money, guess what? We wouldn't have any fucking poor people, would we? If they were all making six figures.
You think
Hold on, let
only
me-
poor people
All
engage
right,
in fraud?
all right, let's go back to. I want to move back though. Because I personally don't know if I believe it's some grand conspiracy and everybody's involved. I do think that specifically Minnesota, it looks like they set up some kind of corrupt Tammany Hall kind of thing. And so what is the level of evidence or that we will need to say let's prosecute Tim Walz or let's talk about Ilya Omar. Go ahead.
I'll give you something clear. If you can show an email chain or any kind of written or verbal communication between Tim Walz and the people who were investigating at the state level, and he was turning them off the investigation, right? And if he was saying, don't look into this, if he was impeding them, if he was firing the people who were engaged in the investigation, or if you found out that he was trying to help the individual companies or NGOs or what have you, or individuals to get away with the fraud, and by giving them advice and saying, hey, heads up, there's an investigative team coming here, then okay, sure, great. Let's go for it, right? There's
And his
probably
Cash App
also
link.
other lesser things that I might accept that I'd have to think about it for a little bit, right? But it's not hard and fast. But
What
what
if
I'm
the
asking
internal
for
memo is
right
true?
now is anything.
What if the internal memo is true? Would that be a problem for you?
Which one? Which
that,
internal memo specifically?
So, John Kennedy brought this up in an earlier hearing, right? I don't know if it's true because they didn't give me the fucking memo. According to Kesa Megan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Somalian name. I have fucking no idea. Saying, quote, there was an internal memo at the Attorney General's office that says, quote, there is a perception that forcefully tackling this issue would cause political backlash from the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc for Democrats. If that memo is true, right, and that they are hesitant to go after fraud because it would be perceived as an attack against the Somali community because they know the fraud is rampant in the Somali community specifically, would that be an issue? Do people need to be at the very least
of course,
fired for that?
That obviously is
Yeah,
an
that
issue,
sounds
but
bad.
does that prove, or is that evidence of them helping the fraudsters, or is this evidence of them being scared of being accused of racism in 2020?
Well, that negligence, if they're in power to be the ones to prosecute and
but
investigate
there's a
it
different,
because
there's
of
a
their
different
fear, would be
standard of-
helping them.
There's a different standard of accountability that I give to someone who's actively engaged in looking the other way because they know
For
the
sure,
fraud
my-
is going
my
on,
argument-
versus someone
yeah,
who
for
is
sure, my-
scared to go after something because they might be accused of being racist. I think that both are
Well,
bad.
they would know that
to
the
be
fraud is
clear.
going on,
I
right?
think that both is bad, to be clear. And if that memo is accurate and true, they do
Mhm.
deserve some condemnation for not going forward with that.
Well,
But we
why
know
don't
they-
you
they
just
did.
my
Wait,
argument
Just real
argument
quick,
isn't
if I-
necessarily
if I
that
may
there's a
finish my
huge
point,
conspiracy. Oh, I'm sorry.
We know that the Biden administration on a federal level did go after these people and did prosecute them and did hold them accountable. So it didn't seem to stop the overall arc of justice here. That's all I'm going to say. Go ahead.
I was just going to say and again, this is why you were saying well, you're tying it to welfare, et cetera. That's why I'm tying it to welfare. And the reason that I'm tying it to the overarching program is because my argument isn't that I have any smoking gun that Tim Walz was involved in a corrupt scheme of getting like kickbacks for political donations to intentionally allow fraud to continue. What my contention is that the negligence and these voting systems, as Tyler put forward, right? That it's a feature, not a bug. That these massive government programs with limited oversight, where people are afraid to fucking go after people because they think it might be racism or it might hurt them in the next election if they go after specific communities, is a means by and the process of all of the corporations that become the specific lenders is the real fraud. It's fraud that's legal. That's the real problem, that the entire system is incentivizing fraud to some degree and is stealing our tax dollars for an incredibly inefficient welfare distribution system that harms everybody.
No, I would like to maybe let's just take this as a hypothetical here. Like,
if it's legal, it's not fraud.
I'm basing this off of actually our shared chat.
Well,
here,
then Hitler did nothing wrong, right? Because it was legal. Like, no,
Jesus
like
Christ.
you can have things that are wrong that the government does, and they say it's good.
Can I give you?
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me. So, and this just came out in the I believe it was the House hearings today. I believe. Let me hang on. Let me just check my notes here.
It's like 4 hours almost.
The House meeting today. There's testimony from people in the state government of Minnesota who showed, they didn't say, they showed that Walz government, now obviously we don't know if Walz himself did it yet because they haven't gotten that far, but it's his government, backdated $680,000. Yeah, $680,000 to a grantee. That's somebody who applied for money without evidence that any work was performed or ever would be performed, which means that that's fraud. And they knew it was fraud because there was no evidence that anything had happened. They just rubber stamped it. What would you say, Rick?
Fraud?
Is that
just gross negligence? Right? Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be fraud.
Come on. I mean, no, that's
what I'm saying, though. Like, looking the other way and incentives is kind of the system.
Thinks about that, because to me that's fraud. And to me that's not incompetent.
Just to
you
be clear,
willingly
are
sign
grants
that
normally applied before the work is done, or are grants given after the work is done? I know scientific grants get some money before they do the work, right?
With a grantee, I don't know if it's a grant per se. It could be some kind of loan. It could just be.
My answer depends on what type of financial transaction there were, because I know scientific grants, you were given the money in order to do the work, right? You were given the money, then you go through, you get do whatever it is that you're granted out to do, and then you present the findings, right? So in the case of them giving the money and then no work had yet been to be performed when they were given the money isn't necessarily evidence of anything to me. It would depend on the type of financial transaction that took place, and I just don't know.
Right. So I guess the important part, which I missed and my chat is screaming at me about, is that, well, I mean, I said it, I just didn't call attention to it, is that money was backdated, which meant that they applied for the grant at one point.
They changed records.
They changed
records. Federal investigation.
Which
is a crime in and of itself.
Let me try this.
If they do a crime, prosecute the crime.
So that's interesting. So here's my thing, right? I'm sitting here listening to this, and let's just run a hypothetical, right? So Walz, let's just say Walz ends up being guilty of a litany of crimes. We know we don't have the evidence yet, but let's just say they're starting, and in 2 years they find a bunch of evidence. I guess we're at two places, and this is really to my Dems first, and then y'all can answer. So what happens then? Y'all basically just ran Walz as y'all's VP candidate, right? And this is the second highest office in the land. They basically, he's presiding over all this fraud, allegedly. Let's see if he gets convicted. What does this say about the Democratic Party? One, if
brother, I don't
this
think
guy, hold on. I do want to go down this line. I'll tell you why at the end. Is it that he's so incompetent that this all happened in his watch, he didn't get it, and the Dems were like, oh, we're purposely going to put somebody incompetent in there, or B, that he was openly fraudulent and they knew, and basically they just are in cahoots, right? Because they benefited. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because for many years now, we've heard about Trump and all his alleged corruption, and so I've heard from the Dems, and many times, just in the chat today, that any Republican that supports
Legend's a
MAGA and all
soft
these
word.
hold on. I've seen these things all in the chat right here, and they say, Republicans, they need to abandon their party. MAGA's a new party. Republican Party's gone. They've fallen by the wayside. This nasty thing. Would that mean that the Dems now need to become a new party? Like, do they need to just like gut the system? Like, what does
I
this
think,
mean? Are there
and I'm
all
going
the
to
Dems
take a
corrupt at that
brave
point?
stance here, that both
Okay, go ahead.
parties have serious issues that they need to get sorted out. The weird kind of, if Tim Walz is guilty, in a world where Tim Walz is guilty of all these crimes, do I think he should be prosecuted? And do I think that the Kamala Harris's vetting team failed? Yes. In that world where he is guilty of all these crimes, I think both those things are true. My question is, I don't know if we live in that world because I haven't seen evidence of this yet.
Not to defend the Democrats too much, but can we also recognize that, like, the last presidential election, in terms of like the Democrat Party's normal process of finding candidates, was a complete and utter shit show? The failure really does stem from them being like, Biden's going to be the one running, and then like realizing that it was not going to be possible to have him run, and they just slapped together a random candidate.
Fabian, the problem I have with that, and the problem I'm hearing from like people that like I talk to regularly, they go, well, the reason why they struggled is because they didn't go through their system, just like when Bernie ran in 2016, and they had the superdelegates to go shut him down and go, no, we want our establishment guy, right? And then they're saying, well, they didn't have a chance to find a new established guy. Well, right, sure, but they're saying we didn't have a chance to get our new established guy, so they put puppets in there like Walz, who was clearly in cahoots with the fraud. Like, that's the argument they're making, and they're saying that there's some sort of establishment within the Dems that's evil. I
don't really want to go down this road too far because it's too far away from the topic, but I thought it was actually insane the way that they picked the Democrats. I actually really thought that they were going to run like Buttigieg and Newsom, but then again, neither one of those wanted to run with Kamala. They didn't want to be attached to that. They both have plans to run for president in the future, and they're smart men. And they said, no, we're not gonna nuke our entire fucking career for that. And that's
let's be honest.
Well,
they went away from Shapiro so that they could be like, so they didn't have Jews. Like they were like, oh fuck,
that they were asked to be.
We won't get elected.
But again, it doesn't matter. It's off topic. You're correct, but I don't think we have, other than Shapiro, which there is some evidence that he was asked and turned down. I don't think Newsom or Buttigieg were asked, but I could be wrong.
It probably should have been Shapiro, but then they were too worried that
if it was Shapiro,
the Palestine people wouldn't
have.
She was
turned down. I doubt they tell the world. I asked everybody, but going back to what.
Well, I mean, at that period of time, they had meetings with Newsom and.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Sorry about
that. Going back to what you're asking here, I kind of forgot the question. Listening to everybody talk.
Thank you, appreciate it.
If Walz is guilty of this crime in 2 years,
2 years,
was it negligence, and then they were running an incompetent guy as a VP, or is it that he's a
I guess my question is like how much widespread fraud attached to like leading Dems will it take before like people will say this party.
One, the Democrats are trying to forget that whole Kamala Harris thing happened. She's fallen by the wayside. She said she was running for president. Didn't even hit the fucking media. I had to go look that shit up because it didn't hit a single news site. So nobody wants to remember Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They want to just move on from that era and the time that they overruled their own primary vote and put up some woman that couldn't speak publicly. So I don't see that ever taking an impact. On top of that, I don't think hypothetically, if we get this rare instance where we actually get the guy at the top, Tim Walz was a nobody before that whole Kamala Harris thing. The only thing that's made him popular was running for VP. I don't think it hurts the party at all. He's gone. He's off the face of the fucking planet now.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. I think that if enough evidence comes out, I think the Dems don't mind having Tim Walz fall on his sword.
What the fuck's that?
I mean, obviously they don't want him. Obviously they don't want that. What I would say though, again, is how corrupt are the Dems? As equally corrupt as the Republicans, which is maximally, right? Like again, like there is this weird thing that statists require, this smoking gun of like proof of like kickbacks and explicit communication and fraud, which is just I think is an ignorant view of how government works. Is that again, like I said, you don't need a conspiracy when like interests align, right? You're a big corporation, you go to a local politician, you donate to his campaign, you give him a paperwork when a bill is about to come out and say, here's what our thoughts on the bill are. And this fucking doofus that is an expert in nothing, usually. It's very rare that there is a politician that's an expert in anything other than maybe business, and then like the occasional person that's like a doctor, right? Like they're usually constitutional lawyers that have been working in like government programs their whole life. And so they go to this person and be like, the chemical, fucking DuPont thinks this is how the regulation should be on this specific chemical. And then they look and they go, oh, these people support me. They seem like good people. And then their fucking son goes to the same school and they, they get into Harvard, and then their son goes and becomes a philanthropist.
Yeah, that's how
like,
Pork Belly Project started. Yes,
that's how all of this shit works. And what I'm saying is the bigger the government programs are, the more of this happens, the more outright fraud happens, as well as the fraud that we call not fraud because it's not illegal, but it's been made legal. When all these vendors and people get these huge kickbacks, and on top of that, they become like, the government preferred lenders, or they get all this money for limited services. And what I'm saying is that, and I will reiterate this over and over again, no matter how much it annoys all of you, which is this is a feature, not a bug. Okay, the entire system is designed to be highly exploitable and to funnel money to the rich and to give breadcrumbs to the poor. And if you genuinely believe that we should have welfare and wealth redistribution, you should just get rid of all of these fucking programs and turn it into a goddamn paycheck. That's it.
Look, I'm kind of on your side there. I definitely feel like that we have far too large a government. We have too many agencies. We have too much money floating around with no accountability. And worse, and this is why I think, and look, Wick knows this, Ollie knows this, we all know this, right? That they make these bills purposefully multi-layered and bury all of this stuff in on page 158 of a 158-page bill so that you never find it. And as they see, we put it in there. This is legal, right?
Just a small caveat to that. I don't think they're doing that to hide it. I think that they're doing that because it's become harder and harder and harder to pass individual legislation, and so they omnibus everything. And so I think that
we have to pass it to
in
know
order
what's in
to
it.
hide and obfuscate.
You may remember
a
that.
lot of times,
The thing is what it does,
if I
though,
can
right?
finish,
Like
a lot of times, what they do is like they put it all into a single kind of omnibus budget resolution or something like that. And that's really the only legislation that gets passed, unfortunately.
Republicans do the same shit. Look at the big beautiful bill, right? Like,
this,
or the one big beautiful bill.
I wasn't separating this from Republicans or Democrats.
Well, that was more to Grid than you.
Yeah, I'm not putting it in one camp or the other. I'm just simply acknowledging that that's what happens, even at the state level. Is they things get hidden.
Well, it's more than that.
bills.
Yeah, but hold on. I
It's more than that,
like
because something gets hidden, right?
Hold on.
Something gets hidden,
on.
and then what happens is they don't actually specify in the hidden thing
Yeah,
in
except
the
Gibbs is
omnibus
gonna say
exactly
that's
how it's
more of a
going to do.
Democrat problem.
What they do is
not
they
what I'm
kick
saying.
it to the executive. They
It is
kick
more
it to the
Democrat problem.
executive to actually determine all the parameters on this shit.
Can we get 3 cheers for government here? Big government.
I want to go. So like here's the issue I have with kind of how y'all are taking this, right? Is in fact I went on Tim Pool and I argued about fucking Doge with Prime, right? And we sat there and we argued and I said this is why
In
we want
retrospect, do you stand by what you argued?
I, in fact, want to triple down is what I'm about to do. Okay. In fact, I like fucking went there.
Gibbs eats bullets for breakfast.
I will. I think Doge has still been going and doing shit. I don't know why it keeps doing it yet. Now it's learned the wrong things. I sat there and defended it, and I pointed specifically to a case here in San Antonio of a center where they were just like, there's no reason they go, we have to keep these people on staff and they can't work anywhere else. They're paying some of these doctors $200K a year to literally, like, to do nothing. And like I was like, this is fraud. But there people are like, no, it's legal, yada yada. And so I take like a little bit of an issue when y'all go, oh yeah, etc. etc. It's a feature, not a thing. I'm like, no. This is why Doge was created, was to go in there and find all this shit. And then now that we're finding more and more like across the nation, now it's like, well,
Didn't it fail though? The guy that came in and
it's
was
a
going to sound
distraction
like
from Epstein, or the media's not talking about this, or look who's finding this, Nick Shirley. I'm like, I don't really care who finds it.
Even if you
how
agree
much
with
fraud did Doge
look,
find?
Yeah, even if you agree with Doge, like in its conceptual, like I think you have to acknowledge that Doge failed in its mission, correct?
Absolutely. I don't know. I've met some people that got hired by.
Yeah, but they only found like
Doge.
5% of the fraud they claimed that they were going to find.
Which is how much money?
They weren't looking specifically for fraud. They were looking for fraud, overspending, and
the point with Doge is like
they find fraud. Doge had no ability to prosecute fraud.
This is the same problem I have with
Republicans.
They were looking for
DOJ.
Find it.
No, this is the same problem I have with Republicans.
I mean, it's absolutely false to say they did not find it.
But hold on, there's a group of Republicans that do the same thing with immigration, right? They go, Trump's numbers are lower than Obama. Trump's numbers are lower than Biden. And I go, well, that may or may not be true, but he built the wall. Now we have nobody coming in.
That's
so
not
even
what
if even if his numbers are lower, he's still working on the problem. Same thing with Doge. They might have promised, billions and billions and billions and trillions, right?
Yeah.
But then they're here finding something, and they're working on it. Like, and then they're fighting tooth and nail. People aren't. You can't disagree with the fact people are like fighting them at every turn. I remember at one point somebody locked themselves in there and burned the records. Right.
Let me ask you this, Grid. Let me ask you this, Gibbs. Sorry, my bad. To me, here's my issue with what you're saying. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with you that there's a principal difference between somebody scamming, saying I'm running a daycare center with 85 kids in it and there's like 12 kids in it, right? And like some of those kids are like being given cash just to say that their kids are there or some shit, right? I understand that that's different than other things. But what I'm saying
is
they're
being given money to say that
not the kids, the parents.
The parents give them money to say that these are our kids and we're keeping them.
I don't know I don't know to what scale it's happening, but it's certainly happening. Right? Like, is it 20 kids? Is it 100 kids? Is it 10,000 kids? I don't fucking know. We need a full-blown investigation. But do we know that there is kickbacks to people? And do we know that people are being bussed in for random shit? That's happening.
But we do know it
Just statistically, it's like
pulled
listen.
I mean, come on, man. Stop it.
It's like when we talk about like voter fraud, and it's like, is voter fraud even happening? It's like voter fraud always happens. The question is whether or not it's statistically significant to swing an election, right? Like, this is obviously going to happen when there are trillions of dollars almost in welfare programs that some people are going to do those processes. To what degree is it statistically significant? That's a question for the investigation. But here's my question to you, Gibbs, is what is the difference to you, the taxpayer, the person trying to buy your become a first-time home buyer, the person that's middle class, struggling and thinking, can we, like groceries are getting expensive, rent is going up, I don't have the money this year to be able to start a family. Can we family plan another year or two later, right? What's the difference to that person between a Somalian or a white person, whatever? In Minnesota, it just happens to be like fucking 80-90% Somalians, right? That's not who's doing it in fucking California, and there's plenty of white people doing it all over the country too. Some Somalians somewhere scamming the government and getting a bunch of tax money for a daycare center with no kids in it versus a government program for housing that a former like fucking congressman that like stepped out of the race gets millions and millions of dollars and only builds 80 houses.
Well,
like, what's the principal difference there, right? Like, it's both fraud to me and to my paycheck.
This is easy, actually. It's very easy, and I feel like Ali's kind of alluded to this before as well. Like, I think y'all are missing the bigger picture. I know it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, one's American, one's Somali. It's not even that. It's that I think one group of people, when they're sitting here, the constituents that are wanting more of this investigations, they're going, okay, we've been bitching about this for both groups for fucking ever. And now they have evidence of, oh, hey, this group's doing it. Let's start there. And then once we start peeling back the onion, let's see what else is underneath this nasty bullshit. And then we can go after all of it. And like, so when you're going, what's the fundamental difference? You're actually working against your own cause if you're libertarian. Because, I'm not a libertarian. I like to spend some tax dollars. I like to move past, But if you're a libertarian, you want all this gone, you should be happy they're starting somewhere, especially an incrementalist, because at least they're looking. Because, if you find it in one area, you're probably going to find
already
it
there. The attention is on it. And my intention is to showcase that the government cannot solve problems. They cannot solve the economic calculation problem, and that whenever they attempt to do these things, it always leads towards less economic prosperity for all Americans. That is why I am concerned. I think I give a fuck about good government as an ANCAP. I don't, right? Like the attention's there, and I'm going to fucking use the time that the attention is there to showcase that this is how the whole fucking system works, and that it's not just some Somalians in Minnesota.
I think Fabian's point is that this is a distraction, right? It's going to be the Republicans are distracting for the Democrats, covering up for the Democrats, right? It gives Fabian's point is that it's the entire government. It's the entire government that's bringing.
Yeah,
But also,
I'm not saying it's a distraction.
Yeah, what he's actually saying is that right now the attention is focused on.
I'm trying to peel back the next layer of the onion.
Problem. We were focused on it. It is a problem. We know that this problem is occurring. There's evidence of this problem occurring. Now we don't know who does it. We don't have evidence to put people in jail. Maybe we decide we don't need to put people in jail.
We might.
We can just cut off the funding, or get those people primaried out in the next whatever. I don't honestly don't give a fuck. But we've uncovered this fraud, this pattern of fraud.
Yeah.
And it's the thing about this specific fraud that matters to me is that, yes, absolutely, I want anyone involved with it to be prosecuted. But even if that doesn't happen, the scale of it is significant enough that maybe this time next year people will still remember it when the next fraud item.
When they're in the voting booth. When they're in the voting booth and some politician goes on the campaign trail, like Zoran Mamdani, for example, and says we're going to get free childcare for New York City. That is a part of my party. That is part of my platform, which it was, right? It is my job to go, hey man, that's how this shit works. You're going to get fucked out of your wealth and prosperity if you vote for people that want to put in a bunch of programs like this. That it's less of that money than you think is actually going to go to kids. It's going to go to big business and to fraudsters.
This is if I may just real quick. Like, I understand that there is never going to be a system that is free entirely and has 0% fraud, waste, and abuse. However, I think that we can limit it as much as we can and still have a lot of these programs to help people in their times of need. I do think that the state, there is a place for it, and just to briefly address this argument, like, it has helped me. It has helped my family. It has helped my friends. Is it perfect? By no means, right? Does it not need ever to be adjusted? By no means. But there is absolutely a place for us to have social programs that help our communities. These are not necessarily a bad thing. And I reject the premise that it is built by design with the intent to shrink the middle class and make us all poor and stupid or anything like that. So
Scott doesn't think these things are
you
bad.
You reject the idea, right? I specifically stated earlier that there isn't some hook-nosed person rubbing their hands together that is planning that. What I'm saying is the thing is what it does, and that's what the incentive.
Well, yeah, well, we know it wouldn't be hook
creates,
because the Dems
right?
use now, right?
Right, like the Democrats more so than the Republicans, but that doesn't mean the Republicans are free of this. Are invested in a system that denigrates the white middle class in favor of the poor. And of racial minorities as a means of a voting block, and the incentivization is more socialist programs and more waste that enrich their friends and give breadcrumbs to the poor. That is my argument. And I would also say that when you say we can have government programs that help, I would argue that that is an impossibility, that there is no such thing as a government program that has ever helped a single person ever. That is a falsity in a misunderstanding of economics and philosophy. It is not possible for those programs to have helped you, because what it has done, it has harmed you first by taking money out of the economy and lowering your opportunities and your wealth and prosperity, and then giving you some of that back. And it is a net negative for you.
If I may, Wick, and Ollie, you too, and even Tyler, I think I know. I think I know our other friend's position. How much fraud, waste, and abuse are you willing to tolerate right now? Do you believe the estimates that it's about 250 million or over or whatever it is
It's just California.
I can't speak to the
Okay.
California stuff.
I heard that it might be over $1 billion. I just don't know that I believe that figure. How much is an acceptable amount so that you can keep the social programs in place?
As little as possible.
Zero.
You want an actual number?
Zero is correct. Because the correct answer is zero. That's
So
the best.
anytime it exists, we need to be strongly policing it and setting examples so it doesn't happen again. These safety nets are imperative, and the people want them. We need to make them work by weeding out fraud and being tough on it every single time, regardless of partisanship.
What percentage of the billions or trillions that we spend on welfare that end up in the hands of large corporations are you willing to accept?
I mean,
And
are the
NGOs.
corporations doing a good job? That's like whether or not the corporations are
there's
getting
multiple
money
reasons
isn't
for
my
that.
issue. It's are they using that money to improve the lives of the community, and to what rate are they
No.
doing that? And we have to look at this at a
That's my
case-by-case
question.
basis.
That's literally my question.
Yeah,
It's
if
like
you're
what
taking 10%
percentage?
off the top,
Again, I am very
10% off the
familiar
top,
with
I
the
think you're
welfare
good. Is it
program
10% for the big
I
guy? Because I've heard
participated
that
in
somewhere.
when I was younger, when I needed it. I am happy that existed. I am satisfied with how it worked. It wasn't perfect. It was a
You have
little
Stockholm
annoying at
syndrome, bro.
times,
They stole
going
that
through the
money
hoops
from
that I
you.
had to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
through.
Fabian
it back
thinks
to you.
I
that's what
found that
happened was
annoying, but it helped me out, and
Wick.
it gave me money
It's
at a
not-
time where I didn't have money.
You
and that was
got
very
paid
helpful.
less money because of that program.
No, that's not
Well, Grid,
true. I would have spent that
yeah,
money
Grid-
on
That's-
other
that
things,
is
like video
factually
games
true.
and all sorts of bullshit. It would
Yeah,
have been
you would have
gone,
spent that money on
right?
things
But
that you wanted.
It's good to
correct.
have a safety
and then you would have
net
stimulated
so
the
that when
economy.
you do get into an unforeseen circumstance and you're too young to have much saved up, that you're able to bail yourself out. That's a good thing.
You're
Should there
too
be an
young
age
to
limit
have
then?
money
Hold on,
saved
hold on,
up
hold on.
The
because
world
they're
is a
stealing
better
half of your
America
money.
specifically
That's
is
a
a
great
better
point,
place
Wick.
now
I
than it
like
was
your
before
point.
we had these systems. We
It's
are
called a
wealthier,
savings
we are
account.
healthier, we live longer, we have more wealth. It's just on every metric possible. We
Yeah,
live
the
in a better
Industrial
world
Revolution
than
occurred.
we
What the
did
fuck are you talking
before
about?
the welfare state came into place.
Refrigerators have become ubiquitous. That doesn't mean that the fucking government welfare programs
Every
work.
time I
saying
say
it
WIC, I
hasn't
think of
hurt us.
Women, Infants, and Children as the giveaway program. Hey, Wick, let me ask you something. Should there be an age limit then? You just said for the young, it helped you out. Should there be an age limit?
I don't think that age would be the factor that I go. Do I think that there should be some restrictions on who can receive welfare? Sure, right?
Okay.
You can, depending on what program we're talking about, we can talk about like what those restrictions might look to be. But I think that it's very possible for
What about a
someone
time
in a
limit?
situation that's like 60 to lose their job and suddenly
Sure, yeah.
You do
have
have a time limit.
not
You do have a
enough
time limit, Wick.
and through unforeseen factors. And I think it's
kind of want to go
perfectly
down a
fine
rabbit
to
hole
help
here
them
with,
out. Yeah, Social
with Wick and
Security,
Ollie.
basically.
Well, let me answer your question real quick about
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
about realistically, right? How much fraud am I?
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, if people were taking 10% off the top, like your average little scam, your average little fraud, I don't think anyone would care.
2%.
But when you're talking about $9
Standard.
billion in Minnesota, I think that's fucking great. Listen, it's fucking nuts. That's a lot of fucking
too
money. I
much,
think if it was,
Ollie's
I think
afraid
that-
Michigan's next. Ollie's
No, hell
afraid
no.
Michigan's next.
no, our scams are different. We scam insurances. We don't scam the government.
I mean, hey, a scam's a scam. So let me ask you. All right, so
Everyone's okay with scamming insurance every now
so
and then.
I'm curious
Nope.
because
That's
this
how
is
you get higher
fascinating
insurance
to me.
premiums, by the way.
Should
You're
there be a
scamming.
time limit on how long you can be on welfare or any of these other programs? Because we know,
unemployment.
because we know
Unemployment,
there's
yes.
dozens of stories, hundreds of examples of people who are professional welfare
Well,
recipients.
hold on. When I was on unemployment, there was absolutely a time limit. I only
There's a
had
time limit.
a certain amount of time. I don't remember
Okay.
off the top of my
Well, you
head.
said
but they
welfare.
made it very
I-
clear to me that I would not continue to receive these benefits after a certain amount of time.
Okay,
It's how much money you paid
but you
in.
said
So
welfare.
these restrictions
so-
exist.
Yeah, so for welfare, man, I think the issue is that you are just kind of giving money out directly to people. I don't like the idea of giving people a card with money. Personally, I've always preferred, like I prefer like Section 8. I think Section 8 is better. Like gives people a cheap place to live that, you know, someone is making money off of, right? Or if you want to do like food banks, right? If someone was getting food like perhaps delivered.
Yeah, churches and food banks are great.
Yeah, free food versus like giving people a card with money. I've actually always hated because I mean a lot of times people either like they turn around and sell it or it's just like it's just a waste. You're
We've
giving
been
people
down
cash.
that road too with
Yeah,
government
giving
food.
people money just isn't
We've been down the government food road before. It's not a good one.
I love government cheese. I still remember that when I was a kid.
I don't think necessarily government food, but like think man, if the so in the same way that you're giving out like a WIC card, right? You're giving out the bridge card, whatever it may be.
WIC card,
If there was like if there was like some fucking process where you go to Walmart and there was an allotment like provided for you, right? That type shit.
Yeah, so
I think
the reason I have
to
so I gotta be honest with you. So
you just described food stamps.
right, food stamp, actual food stamps.
Yeah.
So when I was
Maybe that's
younger,
better.
obviously we were dirt poor, and my parents occasionally had either unemployment. There were a couple of times I think my mom was on food stamps, but they were always off of it as fast as they could. You know, pride and all that. And I personally have never received unemployment or welfare of any kind myself. So I always wonder if if I'm jaundiced, if I just don't have that like ability to look at it. So I'm always very curious about how other people view it. And Ollie, you did a great job, man. I really appreciate that insight there. But
We appreciate your tax dollars as a taker.
I don't know. I like when I'm sitting here. I feel like there's more than this. There's smoke. There's fire. When I'm
got
hearing
like
everything
10
y'all are saying.
minutes, right? By the
Yeah, I
way,
know.
just FYI, so.
I got you. So like when I'm sitting here, and I guess last thoughts when we go to closing. What is the likelihood in y'all's minds? Because to me, I'm starting. I used to be pretty far, like not very high probability. To me, I'm starting to move more and more towards. I think that there's some sort of like institutionalized corruption occurring, like within the Dems. I think the Republicans probably had it with the whatever, but I think MAGA has come in and disrupted and created, probably their own versions of corruption, but not the same institutionalized that has been for a while. And I think we're starting to see it. How likely do y'all think that is? Just like a quick run around the room here.
Institutionalized fraud by like the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
like a NGO system going on.
They're shipping it. They're like bringing people in to vote, and they're giving them a welfare trap, and then they're doing the fraud. And the fraud is like going back to because I mean, like, listen, I know y'all are gonna laugh at me, but like Tucker Carlson's about as big as you get. He proposed this exact same thing to Piers Morgan the other day.
Well,
so like,
sure, I'll just ask you, and my answer is in the question. Like, given that the Republicans, who are enemies to the Democrats, who do not like them. Given that Trump is in the White House
and
controls the whole administration, given that he's appointed Pam Bondi, Kash Patel into positions in the DOJ and the FBI, respectively, given that they control Congress, given that they control Senate, if there were evidence of this institutionalized fraud, why have there been zero arrests? Why has zero action been taken on this for Dems specifically as an institutional thing? So if it's like you're asking me how likely is it? Not very likely, because if it was there, absolutely Trump and them wouldn't just be talking about it. They'd be doing something about it, but they're not doing anything.
I'll take the exact opposite position.
Yeah, I think they're
clarify
involved.
the word fraud. You mean
go ahead.
Legal fraud, or are you talking just colloquially like a plan to funnel money to the party?
I'm saying it's institutionalized. They're in cahoots. That's what my premise
Are
is.
you saying it's illegal, or are you saying that they found a way to do it legally?
They're doing both.
Okay, so I think that the latter is more true. We see with these NGOs, like Stacey Abrams' NGO had just started less than a year beforehand, had done no work and got like $20 billion, and it was completely staffed with out of work Democrat staffers and Democrat members that worked for different administrations and such. So I think that they are kicking money back to their party in some ways that are probably completely legal, that are written into bills that get passed, like that came from the Inflation Reduction Act. So we can absolutely see that on paper. And if that's what you're looking for, I can show you plenty of examples. But if you're looking for illegal fraud, I think Rick's right. We need actual proof of that, and we don't have it.
So what I'll say is, over the last, couple of decades, the Democrats have absolutely built a system of fraud in terms of, corporations, Wall Street being a big one, NGO collusion, and specifically as I designed the socialist programs that are designed to import people to forcibly integrate and to have loose immigration restriction while extreme welfare that just keeps going higher and higher and closer to what Europe does. I will also say, however, that the tide is turning, and that without a doubt, MAGA has committed far more fraud than I think probably the Democrats in the last 30 years combined all together. And what I'll say is this, is that over the last couple years, I think with wokeness dying, the national security state apparatus and the intelligence community has shifted from the position of US aid kind of style of foreign institutional capture via woke politics as a means of like spreading democracy throughout the world. And what MAGA, specifically Trump, has done has engaged in the largest fraudulent scheme that we've ever seen in world history, which is acquiring 10% of Intel, having Jensen from NVIDIA, donate money towards his ballroom, connecting Palantir, turning over the databases for TikTok with Oracle, which is, previously worked on another government program with the CIA, so that we can have data centers and capture and control of our media, of our algorithms, and that the government and many of the people of Palantir, obviously working with defense contract agencies, over 3.3 billion as just part of the Intel merger, that what we are seeing is a majority of the global market is invested in AI, and there has been a massive collusion between the State Department, the intelligence community, and intelligence communities around the world, as well as Trump, to enrich himself, his friends, and the new American empire around AI for election purposes and for political power. So yes, I think what the Democrats do as a means of fucking over the poor and the middle class, but specifically targeting the middle class to create, a kind of like a you will own nothing and be happy kind of, new liberal order is horrific and horrible. But we're seeing the tide turn a little bit. And I think, the corporate overlords that want to engage in controlling your data, controlling your information, controlling your algorithms is like the next phase of that. And I think that's predominantly Republican led right now.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna say what Scott said, but what happens is Democrats are involved in blue collar and no collar crime, right? And then MAGA seems to be involved in white collar crime and white collar fraud, because what's happening is what's that between
you don't understand it very well then.
Really? No, you don't think the Democrats
Wall Street
are involved in
overwhelmingly
the
supports
blue collar?
Democrats. Why do you think Wall Street overwhelmingly supports Democrats?
No, I don't mean about Wall Street directly. I'm saying that like Trump has his coin.
White collar crime, NGOs.
He has his coin. He has his $50,000. He has his expensive dinner meetings. He has his the gold Trump card, the immigration card, $500,000 get you your immigrant status or whatever the fuck it is. I'm saying that's like
Trump is
that
a typical fucking
doing more
New
highbrow
York,
shit,
Atlantic City fucking
doing more
former
highbrow
mob scammer.
Highbrow fraud.
The Democrats are engaged in
Anyway, finish out real quick, and then we're gonna go to closings after you finish, Ollie. Okay, yeah, let's go to closings. Oh, it zoomed in again. Here you go. Tyler, start us off with closing thoughts.
I love this camera.
I do too. I like it's like learning, but it's like some hand motions is getting confused. I don't know. It's getting better and getting worse at the same time. I'm hopefully they'll figure it out soon. But go ahead.
It's an Ozbot, right?
Yeah, it's no, it's something else. What is it? I'll tell you in a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I gotta go take things out here in a second. So I'm gonna go through a couple of things I just never got to because we moved on.
It is an spot.
So what we kind of heard is a rebuke of our current immigration system and our social programs, and we got a long story from California that cost a guy a ton of money. And absolutely, you could cite some pretty bad examples if you're going to cherry pick the bad examples. But for every California high-speed rail system that takes 20 years and billions of dollars that never gets fully built, you can go to Florida and look and see that one get built in 6 years with significantly less money spent. It's just sometimes when you have democracy, you get inefficient people that come in and over-regulate for the climate. That's where a lot of these things actually come from. It's not that the government's bad. It's that the people in that state wanted this specific regulation because they care more about the environment than their pocketbook, which is the voters' prerogative to make. It's not all about just the GDP and money. The welfare state isn't going anywhere. We all know the risks of it. We all know that this thing can exist. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, we're going to police the very low amount of fraud that actually happens in it. The idea that people can do stupid or bad things, and that's the reason to throw out the system, would also say that since businesses fail, we should throw out capitalism, and nobody's going to make that argument because it's silly. So throwing out the welfare system, because sometimes there's welfare fraud at very low rates, mind. Now, something that I want to go back to the immigration part too, because something like 80% of visa workers come to the United States, they work and then they leave. They don't stay here, they don't start a family, they usually send money back home to their families so they can get ahead there and then go back to their country when they're done. We need people to stay here. We need that perpetual growth. The reason why is because the boomers are now aging up to the generation where we need the government systems to take care of them. As Wick was saying, most of our money goes to these top generations. In order to get that perpetual growth with the birth rates we have to import people. If we're importing people, they're just working for a few years and leaving. They're not a long-term investment in the country. We're spending money to bring in short-term investments that only help us in the short term. We need compassion-based immigration to get people to stay here long-term. So we bring in some people that Grid would deem as an undesirable. Sure, their IQ is low. Sure, they're a little bit more prone to criminality. Sometimes they eat people's faces. It happens, you know. As the Statue of Liberty said, bring us your poor, bring us your tired, bring us your sick, bring us your inbred. And after one generation,
Your inbred.
They turn around and they become fantastic citizens in society. They go to college at higher rates. They usually make more money than average U.S. citizens. So long term, they stay here. We build our safety net even bigger because we have more people coming here to contribute.
Fabian.
Yeah, I think this issue of ought we prosecute the Democrats? You know, if we find smoking guns, obviously, like I'm not going to cry about one criminal gang, which is the Trump administration going after another criminal gang, which are Democratic politicians. I think it's important that we look at this and that this blows things out of the water. And I do look at this very similar to the way that I look at Doge, right? Which is that Doge is largely a failure in terms of finding the amount of money and waste that they said they were going to find. But I think that it helped wake up a lot of Americans to just how stupid our government is. You know, people have a hard time with this potential paradox, which is that the government is maximally inefficient at everything that it does. It's full of fraud, waste, and abuse. It's the dumbest shit that any normal person would be like, well, I'd fix that if I was a manager. And at the same time, they have so much power. And that comes from the power to tax, because you can be as inefficient as you want if you can just take more money to solve the problem. And that's what we're seeing the collapse of the middle class in America because of welfare systems that have gone up over 700% in terms of funding in the last decade. We are watching, our deficit balloon, and a large portion of that, most of that, is due to Social Security. The solvency of the dollar is going to eventually break, and our credit system, as our ability to sell bonds to other nations, is eventually going to break. And what we're seeing is we have to constantly be involved in wars to try and maintain tying our inflation, the US dollar, to oil trading and OPEC, right? Why the fuck do you think we invaded Venezuela? Because the American economy collapses if we don't keep invading Middle Eastern countries and invading countries like Venezuela, if we don't fight BRICS so that we have a means of making sure that the entire world has the same inflation rates that we have so that we can prop up this horrific economy. And that's why it's important when we see all of this fraud, waste, and abuse in these systems that we understand that it is a feature, that this is how the wealthy elite and the politicians enrich themselves and enrich their friends at your expense. At the normal person that goes, I've never been on welfare in my entire life, but I'm hearing that these people are getting millions. Like, what the fuck is this? I put forward, as much as I'm a libertarian and I hate the government and I hate the state and I hate welfare, man, we could give every poor person in America, every poor household in America, $35,000. $35,000. Just straight up give them a check. Get rid of all these programs. $35,000 a year on top of whatever bullshit McDonald's job they have, and they would be fine. They would be thriving. They would be okay. And we would save $700 billion. We would save fucking more money than we've ever paid to Israel since it's been a nation multiple times over a year. If we just gave out checks instead of enriching corporations and the corporate elite and politicians and scammers. That is why the government programs do not solve problems. And that is why we should look at these situations of fraud and realize that it's not necessarily, it doesn't need to be corruption for votes, but, against whatever laws are made. but instead that's how the laws are made. They are designed to create a massive welfare state that incentivizes that the poor people from other countries with fucked up values and low IQs and high rates of fucking being inbred, that send a bunch of money back home to Somalia, that supports terrorism and causes more wars. And don't worry, if they cause a fucking problem somewhere, the American military can step in and have another fucking war in the Middle East, because it's not like we've stopped in the last 20 years at doing those. And recognize that that is how the system is designed. It is designed as a eugenics program to outbreed high IQ and middle IQ people that are competitive and conscientious, and keep them from building families and keep them from being able to succeed, and to create a permanent underclass in this country that fights for breadcrumbs. We need to abolish welfare. You'll never solve this problem by prosecuting fraud, because the system is fraud.
All right, thank you so much, Grid.
Oh, okay. I'd made an assumption that you were going to let Wick or Ollie go before me, but that's okay. Yeah, look. So, Tyler, your closing sucked, man. I got to be honest. While I enjoy listening to Tyler, the points. Look, he's wrong about the percentages. He's wrong about so much, but I'm just gonna point to what the on topic stuff is. First, there is fraud. We know there's fraud. I heard a billion. Ollie said way more, so maybe he's more up to date on the numbers than I am. But even if it's even if it's only $9 billion in fraud since whenever they started, that's too damn much. You know, it's too damn much. What has actually happened is not a eugenics program per se, as my friend Scott pointed out. But what has happened is portions of our government and private industry together have built a machine, a very efficient machine, an industry that steals money from taxpayers on an ever increasing and amazing level. There is no other word for it. It is theft. Nobody actually gets any benefit from that. Everyone who says, well, you know, welfare helped me out. Yes, that's great. It was state run. It wasn't, you know, I'm glad that you as an individual were helped. However, we're not talking about you as an individual. We're talking about companies that get money to provide daycare for students that don't exist, or to provide learning for adults that never go there. And yet they still get all of this damn money that comes from my taxes and Scott's taxes. And I'm assuming Tyler still pays taxes. I don't know. But
you're leaving out Ali, you fucking racist.
Well, I have to leave out Ali because he's from Michigan.
I avoid as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even sure Ali admits to being employed, okay? So, I mean, I'm just saying. It's a machine, and it's wrong. And I don't care whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, but I think it's pretty clear in the two states that have been affected the most so far that a lot of it is done with members of the Democrat administration's knowledge. Now, whether or not they were complicit, I don't know. That's for a court to decide. Whether or not they're guilty of an actual crime, not my decision, pal. That's for a court to decide. And if they're acquitted, great, wonderful. But that doesn't change the fact that we know this is happening, we know where it's happening, and we know who's involved. We just don't know how much. Beyond that, I think we've had a lot of around the poll discussion tonight that really doesn't matter. But it was interesting and I had a good time. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much. Ollie?
Yeah. So I guess the more and more I have these conversations, especially with Scott and then people in and against him, in theory, I agree with Scott. I'm not gonna lie, I think he's correct in what ought happen, right? I do. Listen, I do. But in practice, I kind of align more with Wick, right? I do like my social policies. We do live here. In reality, I'm okay with a little bit of fraud, a little bit of scamming, 10% off the top, keep it clean, keep it light, keep it simple, right? But we do seem to be living in a world where it seems to be increasingly more government against the people. And if that's going to be the case, right, I'm going to start looking into how many daycares I can open up, because apparently it costs fucking nothing. All I have to do is rent a little studio somewhere. This is quick, and you don't get in that much trouble if you get caught. So
you just close down.
Just saying, recommendations. Thanks for having me on, Gibbs. I really appreciate it, fellas. It was a pleasure arguing with you tonight.
Thank you so much, and Wick.
Okay, wow, we had a lot of words said, a lot of arguments made. Here's the long and short of it, and I'll do my best to be as concise as I possibly can. I do believe that there was and is fraud in Minnesota that is being conducted. I think that the evidence that I have seen suggests that more often than not, when fraud is found, it is investigated, prosecuted, and stopped. At least that was the case under the Biden's Department of Justice, and we know that they did. One of the problems I have with this conversation is so many people are living in the vagaries. They're living in this vague innuendo. I've asked several times during this panel, can you show me, right, the implication that the Democrats have this industrial scale fraud that they knowingly have set up to milk the taxpayer and to get these kickbacks? If you have evidence for this, by all means, prosecute it. But the fact that they aren't doing this, at least not towards Walz or Omar or any of these big names, suggests to me that they probably don't have any actual evidence. And I don't think that we should be going off of YouTube videos, right? When you have this same group of people who consistently get stories wrong, right, because they have poor journalist practices, right? We shouldn't be trusting them in order to pull all funding because he made a video. If you wanted to pull all funding because there was fraud going on, and then you decided, well, because of all these things that the Biden DOJ was prosecuted and all these other investigations, fair, but they're not doing that. The J.D. Vance was saying, oh, Nick Shirley should got a Pulitzer Prize for his award-winning journalism or what have you. It's just silly, and I don't like silly. Look, at the end of the day, if there's fraud, prosecute it. But I haven't seen evidence that Tim Walz is like secretly funneling money to Somali paymasters. So, it is what it is. Wick TV, all platforms. I love you all. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here. Tomorrow, 7:30, Golden Dome, Golden Fleet. We're going to be arguing about that. I think Bill Burns will be here. And Friday, we'll be on Wicks at 5. Should be wild. We're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about Wick.
Oh, just to be clear, yeah, I'll tell you guys what's going on with that. Because a couple of people here are going to be on that, and it's at 6 Eastern. Just so my viewers aren't confused.
Yeah.
6
5
Eastern.
p.m. my time.
Yeah.
6
Eastern is the only time that matters in America. The majority of the U.S. population
Central
is on the East
time.
Coast. Our capital is on the East Coast. The
Central
New York
time is the
Stock
only time
Exchange
it
is on the East Coast.
6
Wait, we don't
Eastern.
care about that.
6
Central
Eastern.
right there in the name.
6 Eastern. We're having a Destiny versus Dev. A Destiny and Dev versus the World panel, specifically on January 6th. The White House.
You still work with that creep?
Which one, Dev or Destiny?
Destiny. I just,
yeah,
like,
of course.
You still.
Like, I will
man,
work
that's
with,
so
I will work
pathetic.
with anyone, right? But regardless.
Anyway, let him finish.
Regardless, okay.
It's just sick.
On
It's gross.
January 6th, the White House put out what some might call fraudulent version of events of what happened on January 6th, including accusing Democrats of being the real insurrectionists. Dev and Destiny had a problem with that and invited all comers to come in and challenge them. And I've invited some of these people, lovely people, to come in and do that. And if you have a problem with it, we are going to at some point open up call-ins during that show, so feel free to get in line. But yeah, that's the.
How long do you anticipate that being, Wick?
Oh, good question. Depends how much energy you guys bring to it. So.
And on that note, we're going to go raid someone I'm going to see in 2 weeks for IRL content. We're going to raid Scott. So y'all be good. Thank y'all so much for being here. It was good times, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Y'all be
And
good.
all
Y'all
the
be
debaters.
safe.
See you guys.
Have a good night, fellas.
Give me a second, gang. Don't go anywhere, boys and girls. Don't go anywhere. We still have more to share today. Okay. You guys see me again? We're off of that nonsense. Let me end this call here. Leave collaboration. We talked a lot about, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my words. We talked about a lot of things tonight. We talked about the ICE shooting of Renee. That's her name, Renee Good, who was shot in the face by an ICE agent. Okay, we went through the video. We saw the streams, right? We went through the Department of Homeland Security statement and Trump statement. What a great conversation, right? And there's more to come. On Monday, we're going to talk about that more. We had a panel about, ostensibly it was supposed to be about fraud, but here we are. I don't know. Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys have fun? Did you guys yeah, that's what I gotta say. Did you like the content? If you did, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. What did I miss while I was here? $5 says, when did Gibbs become Jesus? $2 from the one HQ says, I think we just saw low IQ at work. AKA Batozai, thank you for the 5 Wick TV gift memberships. The one here HQ says, stop crying, where is his facts? Artemis Fowl for $5 says, why did the state government fabricate documents to cover up fraud and hide improper payments from the OLA auditor investigation? I don't know. And if they fabricated documents, they should be prosecuted for it. $5 from the Artemis Fowl to say, would the Attorney General telling some fraud businesses that he would protect them from investigations count as evidence for you? It depends on why he was protecting them from investigations, whether he thought they were innocent or guilty. $10 from Artemis Fowl says he isn't even explaining it correctly. The worker granted $680,000 to a company with no evidence and then quit 2 days later and started working for that company. But what exactly happened there? I'm not sure. $2 from Generic Plays. Thank you for $2. And then finally $10 from Karen D. Hippie to say, what's everyone's net worth? Well, it's $10 more thanks to you. So appreciate that. I am tired, gang. I did finish the first book of the year, okay? The Will of the Many. I finished that officially last night, okay? And I'm starting on the next book, Empire of the Damned, today, probably after this. And if you'd like to join me on my 50-book journey, pick up some books, start reading, okay? We're doing 50 books this year, and we're going to get to them. And it's going to be fun. We all need to read more, okay? I know I love it when you guys watch my show, but also read. Reading is good. Reading helps you. Reading is positive. Okay, where are we going? Who are we raiding into? Enemy Charlie? Let's go to Enemy Charlie. Why not? The Snizzler, gang. Okay, the Snizzler. Tell her it is a hate raid, but we love her, really. I will talk to you guys later.